Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. We are live. It is Thursday, August 6th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope the audio is a lot better than it was yesterday, and I think it should be, but let me know if it's not. Apparently, last night on the market close, all I had to do was put in the headphones. At least for now, that is a solution. So your boy will be rocking the AirPods here, and hopefully that keeps the audio intact. But thank you, everybody, for being here. We have had quite the past 24 hours in terms of what has happened in the global capital equity markets. Thank you, Chad, for the, I was going to say compliment, but it's probably not a compliment. It's probably more of a sarcastic remark that I look like I'm on Squid Games. But it kind of feels like we're in Squid Games if you're playing these earnings, because yesterday on the market close, it legitimately felt like red light, green light everywhere you went when it came to earnings. I mean, the amount of companies that were up 10%, 12%, 15% that ended down 7 to 8% was quite incredible and not something that I expected. And we're seeing that kind of across the board with everything red right here in the pre-market. Sandisk is going to be the big one that we talk about today. That's down 9.8%. Obviously, Sandisk was controlling the state of the high beta memory trade. And as a result of high beta memory, Sandisk and memory in general kind of controls the state of a lot of the broader high beta trade. And unfortunately, because Sandisk went down 9.7%, you're seeing a lot of other names get hit. Micron, that's down 4%. Robinhood's down 1%. AppLovin. I mean, I can give you all the technical reasons for why some of these stocks fell down when it comes to margins or guidance, but 25% drops. HubSpot down 23%. They are pretty aggressive. And it is I mean, Figma was up 15% before going down 14%. Duolingo was up 12% before going down 7%. Nebius right now at 209 after Nebius was inching towards 230 yesterday. And obviously Sandisk and memory kind of affects the neoclouds, which is why Nebius is getting hit. So it is a pretty remarkable change from the first 2 days of August, where it felt like the July deleveraging was hopefully done and that we could have a little bit of room to breathe. And quite frankly, we did get a little bit of room to breathe. It's just Unity is up 17%. Then you have some other stocks that are like going crazy in the pre-market right now in earnings, which we'll talk about. We did have some room to breathe, but then, you know, it was a bit harder to breathe once the market decided to, again, say some of these earnings either we think are unsustainable, we don't like the expectations, we don't like the guides. I read a lot of sell-side reports this morning, and, you know, they obviously lowered their price targets on stocks that they thought would double 90 days ago because somehow in 90 days, the entire thesis changed. And so I think you just have a lot of institutional sentiment that is going the wrong way against some of these stocks. I don't think it changes the fundamental thesis, but nonetheless, that is how the market is reacting right now. Celsius, this is one I know a lot of people cared about, down 14% right here, pre-market. Celsius actually had a bad quarter. They missed on pretty much everything. So we'll talk about that. Oscar had an exceptional quarter from what I saw. The stock was up 15%, and now it's down 5%. It just, again, from yesterday's market close into today's market open with the pre-market earnings that we've seen, it's been weird. Like, it's like these, you know, sort of miniature earnings reactions that we have for about 20 minutes, or for some of them for 20 seconds, get faded away instantaneously. And it's making you wonder, is this a macro thing? Is this a company thing? Or are we not really out of the woods yet after the Leopold situation and there's some more leverage that needs to get out of the system? Or is it just general August sentiment tends to suck for the market, and we are now in early August and we're kind of experiencing that ourselves? So we'll talk about it. We'll get into everything. By the way, I don't think it's oil or Iran. I mean, every update that I'm seeing over the past 24 hours is super bullish. Oil's up a little bit right here. It's up $1. It's not that crazy, but the updates I've seen is that we're likely going to announce something soon. So I don't even think you can blame Trump for this. This feels more market-driven, macro-driven. And so we'll try to get an understanding of why this is taking place. Datadog was up like, what, 100% year to date. One of the best software stocks this year. It was down 25% on earnings. Now it's down 15%. Went to 214. Now it's at 240, down from 283. Again, just an ugly past 24 hours for a lot of these stocks. And quite frankly, I think the other reason a lot of the software stocks are getting sold off is because once Figma, Duolingo, and HubSpot fell yesterday, ServiceNow, Salesforce, Palantir, all of the other software names started participating in that sell-off. And then you just had a general SaaS sell-off in the morning with a general semiconductor sell-off in the afternoon, given the Sandisk earnings, says that fell 9%. Seagate's down 5%. AAOI is down 2%. Dutch Bros was up 10%. Now it's down 11%. You know, just a really, really weird past couple of days in terms of looking at what's happening with these earnings. One could argue Citadel might be unloading some of the position as well. I read some theories about that in the morning, and so we'll talk about that to kind of get an understanding of it. Celestica did an offering last night, unfortunately, of I think $12 billion. That's why that stock's down 14%. This is one of the proxy suppliers to Google and Broadcom. On top of that, you have Fluence Energy. I know this is a popular name. That's down 14%. So we'll get into all these earnings, but it's a bit tough right now for any of these stocks to get some momentum. And in the face of all that, the S&P 500 is up in the pre-market 0.1%, which goes to show you the level of expansion that the market has had, whether it's financials, healthcare, et cetera, that has led to more momentum across the entire board for the S&P. All right, so let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's get started. I think we start off with the big one from yesterday that kind of determines where everything is going. Actually, before we get into that, let's just look at this real quick. This is the SpaceX unlock chart. Today, 911 million shares will be unlocked at market open. Look, I think the conventional argument is that the stock will sell off because people will sell. I also think the stock has sold off pretty aggressively over the past 2 weeks and 10% on earnings. So maybe that's priced in. Usually in markets, conventional wisdom, the opposite tends to happen. So there is a big unlock, but nonetheless, the stock is down a lot. And maybe there's a world in which those shares don't immediately get sold. But if they do immediately get sold, then I mean, at the end of the day, that's a lot more selling pressure. And then after the second quarter earnings near November, you have 1.3 billion shares. So that's not $911 million worth of shares. That's 911 million shares itself, which means if you do the math times the stock price, that's obviously hundreds of billions of dollars. I think it's about 115 billion that's being unlocked today. And as a result of that, we're going to see how the market reacts to it. But this is also one of those things that can create a little bit more high beta havoc once the market opens. And then one more thing before Sandisk, macro jobless claims. Once again, we do not have an unemployment problem. According to the macro data, JOLTS was pretty good. The market expected 205,000 people to file for unemployment. It came in at 199,000. Again, a recession is 350 to 375,000. So we are nowhere near recessionary levels yet, which means, overall, hopefully we can maintain a lot more of this momentum in the labor market. Okay, so Sandisk, what happened? I listened to the call yesterday. A bunch of you guys were with me on the market close. Nothing was wrong. Q4 revenue of 8.97 billion. That beat expectations. It's up 300% year over year, 51% Q over Q. Just the EPS 39.25 versus 34.45. That's $5 better than expected. Gross margins were 84.6%, above estimates of 81%. So they beat on margins, they beat on the guide, they beat on revenue, they beat on EPS. So why is the stock down 10%? I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, from what I read on the sell side, they're a bit upset that the guidance wasn't as good as it needed to be. Jefferies cut their price target from 3,000 to 1,750. And this to me is kind of hilarious that, less than 90 days ago, all of these sell side guys said 2,800, 3,000, 3,200, 2,750. And now like clockwork, Evercore down to 2,800 from 3,100, Jefferies down to 1,750. I mean, the kind of core argument right here is that September quarter revenue guidance was modestly below the street expectations. So although margins were good, although the long-term agreements were good, although the obviously EPS beats were amazing, it's trading at like 5 times forward earnings at this point. The problem is the guidance wasn't as good as it needed to be. And what's that's telling me here is two things. Either the memory stocks right now, I don't want to say are being manipulated, but are being controlled by larger parties that have different interests in terms of how to maneuver the broader AI memory trade. Jane Street came out yesterday and they said they own 5% of Sandisk. So, you definitely have a bit of momentum up or down based on how Jane Street wants to sell or engage with the position that they have in Sandisk. But more importantly, if it's not like the big guys trying to figure out how to maneuver the position, Citadel obviously got a massive position from Leopold, I think at like $1,000 a couple of weeks ago when he got liquidated. My personal opinion is I think the market doesn't feel like memory is the sexy trade anymore. And the reason for that is because the cat's out of the bag. You know that you need memory. You know that memory supply demand imbalance is the greatest it's ever been. And you know that there's only a few companies that can get that capacity to be online. Now, all those reasons are bullish. The problem is when everyone knows all those reasons, where's the alpha coming from? And I think then you start to get in some of the bear cases, and the bear cases are pretty simple. What happens when a lot more supply comes online and demand doesn't grow as fast enough to meet that supply? AKA there becomes an oversupply. And then B, what happens when prices peak? And the fact that the guidance was not as strong as the street needed to be, it could be a stupid reason for it to sell off, which honestly, given the multiple on the stock, it probably is a stupid reason for it to sell off. Same reason why Micron probably shouldn't be below $1,000 right now either. By the way, Kospi was down 5% last night, so that doesn't help the memory trade either. But the point is, when you're trading in such a non-sustainable type of way, aka your stock went from 25 to 2,300 in less than a year. And the market's saying, okay, why did this happen? Okay, this is happening because we're in this new agentic revolution with AI and we need more and more memory. Okay, fine. So why do we need more memory? Because, that helps all these large language models have better context windows. Okay, in order to have those context windows and for memory to be profitable as an investment, we need to make sure that the margins are good. We need to make sure that the growth is occurring. We need to make sure that there's not a boom and bust. And every single question, if you were listening to the call yesterday, was essentially, if you just got rid of all the intellectualism from the questions and had it down to its bare bones, every analyst was like, when does this thing bust? And the CEO was like, I don't know, but you look at the numbers, you look at our guidance, you look at our TAM that we're going after, 500 billion of NAND in 2027. We don't think it's going to bust anytime soon. And it just feels like the market doesn't believe that. Now, is the market dumb for not believing it? Probably, because from everything I understand about memory, we're going to need a lot more of it. But any hint of the trade and the dynamics of the trade not necessarily being perfect, aka the supply demand imbalance or the pricing power, NVIDIA coming out with some new innovation that with LPU architecture and SRAM that doesn't necessarily need as much HBM or NAND and all that stuff. Again, some of those things are low probability, but the fact that they're out there speaks to the fragility of the trade if the sentiment around the trade ends up collapsing. Having said that, Sandisk is a volatile stock. So is Micron. These stocks go up and down 7% every day. So a 10% reaction to earnings isn't really telling you much, which is why I'm so surprised that the sell side is taking down their price targets. It's like, dude, if you've been in Sandisk, this thing goes up literally 20 or 30% every other week. This is not something where a 10% move should be scaring anybody. It's annoying to look at, but nonetheless, this is the nature of the volatility of the stock. But the fact that they're lowering their price targets to me, A, proves that they can't really defend the price target they had in the beginning, but B, also says that they are a bit scared that if anything in the narrative changes, then, the stock could fall pretty dramatically. So that's what you have on Sandisk, down about 10% right here. We'll see what ultimately happens to the broader memory trade. But as of now, that is creating some pain. And, Micron, Western Digital, Seagate. Oh, Western Digital, by the way, their earnings were okay. But same thing with Sandisk. They just didn't beat at the level they needed to beat at. The street's expecting, 10, 15, 20% beats. They had a 2-3% beat. That stock's down 15%. So you just have to have bigger numbers if you're going to be, that high beta volatility or have that type of high beta volatility in your stock. So that's what we have for Western Digital, down 15, and then Sandisk right there, down 10, Micron down 4. What's the other one? Seagate, is that down? That is also down about 5% in the pre-market. Celsius, let's look at that real quick. Celsius is down 14%. So this was not a good quarter for Celsius just from looking at the headline numbers. Then we'll talk about Oscar and some of the other SaaS companies that we had yesterday. They missed on revenue pretty badly. Street wanted 870. They came in 817. But in the chat, if you still drink Celsius heavily, because I know over the past 2 years it has grown in popularity. They're growing 11% year over year. That's just not good enough growth. EPS is down 23% year over year. Adjusted EBIT is down 12% year over year. Retail sales is up 31% year over year, but their gross margins is also down 340 basis points a year. CEO, we're building a scaled modern energy portfolio with distinct roles, attracting new consumers and expanding consumption occasions. We want to return the brand Celsius to sustainable growth. The fact that they're saying we are trying to return the brand to sustainable growth means that A, the growth is not that sustainable, and B, you're not seeing the guidance reflect that the growth is going to be sustainable anytime soon. So what does the street do? They say, all right, there's a lot of other companies that are much more rooted in the AI revolution that we're having right now that are growing, and maybe their growth is not as sustainable either, but their growth is definitely more sustainable than an energy drink in the moment because GPU demand is not slowing down. So that's why this stock is taking a hit. And it's one of those things where Celsius is not the most important stock in everything that's going on in the context of AI, but a lot of retail holds it, right? So you do have a lot of excitement and momentum around this. The stock used to be a $100 stock 2 years ago. The earnings just weren't that good to keep up with it. Now, Oscar, on the other hand, had an amazing earnings. See a decent amount of people here say they don't necessarily drink Celsius. More of you guys are coffee people. Yeah, and again, I've never loved Celsius, but I've never wanted to judge the stock based on me not liking the drink. But the numbers right there are enough for why this stock's taking a hit. Oscar had a phenomenal earnings. It was up 15%. I'm actually surprised it's down 6%, but I'm also not surprised because when everything's dumping right here, you would imagine a company like Oscar, is probably also going to take a hit. The CEO bought at $11.92, $12 million worth of stock back in April 6th. So you had the CEO kind of snipe the bottom of these shares. The problem is, for some reason, the market is not liking the earnings that we saw. They had massive fiscal year 2026 operating income raise. They beat the top end of the previous range. They doubled their guide for profitability. I think one thing that could be happening right here is the ACA policy risk. And, I know the Affordable Care Act subsidy stuff is not like the biggest concern for Oscar anymore, just given how much the numbers are. I think they raised their overall guidance to 700 million as well. But at its core, like those are still policy risks that could be in question. And, I don't even want to say that's the reason why the stock reversed its entirely. I think it's more macro, but maybe that's something that the street is thinking about. Revenue came in at 4.9 billion versus 4.7. EPS $1.10 versus 39 cents. That's a massive beat. They raised their revenue to 19 billion versus 18.6, operating income to 700 million. The street was estimating 400 million. I mean, that is an extreme operating leverage that you're seeing on a stock like Oscar right there. And so I think if this thing really does substantially dip back into the like mid 20s, it's already at 27.50 as it's getting dumped as I speak, down 8%. If you're an Oscar long-term shareholder, this has got to be an opportunity for you, because I don't see the red flag here outside of it being a really crappy day to report earnings. But again, stock hit 36 at one point pre-market. I mean, you just can't show these types of numbers and then be ignored. Kind of what we saw with Zeta yesterday, right? I know it's down a little bit right here, but the reason it was up 15% is because they showed real numbers. It's been consolidating for a while, just like Oscar, even though Oscar's had a much better year than many of the tech stocks, to be honest. And the street ultimately recognized that. Yeah, Oscar's up 100% this year. So even with the 8% decline pre-market, that's not the biggest deal here. But that's what we have on Oscar. Monster is up 60% year to date. I mean, Monster continues to be one of the best performing stocks of all time. Celsius just not really getting that type of market share for them. Duolingo. Okay, so Duolingo numbers were also really good. This stock fell from like 580 at the top down to the lows of like 90. So when it bounced on earnings yesterday, I expected it to kind of hold, but once again, it was not able to hold. And that's why the stock got hit. Revenue was up 18% year over year, 298 versus 296. EPS was down 27% year over year. Daily active users was up 23%. Free cash flow was down 9% year over year. Bookings, once again, came in a little bit light, 307 million on the guide. And then revenue came in 2 million lower than expectation, 302 versus 304. I don't love the moat of Duolingo. I think there is a moat. I don't love the moat with their proprietary data to be able to train models that actually help you, learn different types of languages. I think there is a moat there, but I think that moat can come into question just with all the different versions of language learning that's out there. But the stock was depressed a lot over the past year, so I thought it would get a pop. It's not getting a pop. Same thing with Figma. I mean, a lot of these names, they got their move after hours for like a few minutes, and then they just declined. Figma right there, they crushed earnings. They grew by 48%. 48%. And they still were not able to get the bid right here. I think the street, once again, with Figma is upset at their guide. Oracle right there down about 3%. And yeah, I mean, you kind of needed a flawless quarter like Palantir to get any level of meaningful love if you're a software company, kind of like Datadog had a couple months ago. And that's why that stock went up so much. And, if you 90 days later, you just don't have all your numbers hitting at the levels you need to. I mean, Palantir for the past 2 quarters had amazing numbers and they still couldn't catch a bid. So for some of these names, I think they're just going to have to continue massive levels of execution in order to get that momentum. And if they don't, then obviously they might end up taking a hit. AppLovin, this one, and then we'll get into some of the macro. Axon also had a good earnings, but once again, Axon software play down 4%. That's actually light compared to all the other companies that got hit. But overall, Axon's earnings were pretty good. That stock went from 800 to 300, now back at 600. So it has recovered meaningfully from the lows right here. Unity also had a great quarter this morning. That's why that's up 14%. Figma again down 15% right there. HubSpot also down 24%, which was interesting. HubSpot, I think, from a content marketing perspective, you think could also be commoditized by AI, even if it's not literally getting commoditized. But that's why Salesforce took a hit, as those top line AI numbers are just not being respected in the way that one would argue that they could be respected. Now, AppLovin right here, they were a bit lower on the guide and on their gross margins, which I guess you can nitpick at, but nonetheless, those are reasons for why the street is a bit upset. Revenue did miss by 20 million, nothing that crazy. EPS beat by about 4 cents. But again, the guide and particularly the free cash flow guide. So the street wanted 1.29 billion. They came in at 863 million. Now, part of the reason for that was because of the Axon implementation into their data platform to deliver advertisements. And so there were some technical reasons for why that hit their margins, and maybe the street's reacting to that. But the stock was $800, got into the S&P 500 back in September of last year, and now it's at 300. And the growth has only been growing. Maybe it's not growing at, it's not growing 80% like it was before, but still 53% growth is nothing to scoff at. Nonetheless, the stock trades at an expensive multiple. Same thing with Shopify. So it's like if Shopify had, again, a flawless quarter, which is why their multiple was sustained, AppLovin obviously did not, as we're seeing right here. And as a result, that stock taking a bit of a hit. Yeah, Datadog triple beat. I think once again, the problem with Datadog here was the guide. A lot of these names, the guide is getting the street a bit upset. QBTS also, that flat revenue year over year, and that's why the street wasn't most excited. Like Datadog, street wanted 62 cents of EPS for the Q3 guide. They came in at 65 cents. It's like, okay, 3 cents, that's good, but it's not what the street like really wants to see. Revenue, street wanted 4.35 billion for the guide. They came in at 4.47. Like the guide's just not being raised at a level that would make you think, not that the execution is not there, but just like, you know, the street's at this point where the stock's at all-time highs and you're not raising the guide substantially. I mean, again, Palantir raised their guide from 70% year-over-year growth to 82% year-over-year. Like these are just, now I don't know if they can do that every single quarter, obviously, but at least for the time being, when you have that level of momentum and your stock is depressed, you get a boost. Datadog, the stock was not depressed. It was up a lot. You didn't have a massive surge in guidance. And so street ends up taking it down. DRAM right there, that's down 7%. QBTS, again, they missed on EPS. They came in flat on revenue. These are quantum stocks that, quite frankly, aren't making a lot of money yet. So again, I think these are names that you buy and hold for the long term if you truly believe in the quantum revolution. But street wanted 31 million or 4 million. They came in at 3.1 million. And then EPS, street wanted negative 9 cents. They came in at negative 13 cents. Just not exciting numbers for the market to give it that much love. So that is what we got with most of the earnings that we have. For those asking about Sandisk, we just talked about it. For this one, once again, from everything I read from the sell side today, the guide was lower than expected, even though the earnings were substantial. I continue to feel that there's a little bit of fear around certain parts of the AI stack when it comes to memory. And maybe that fear is short term and it's probably unwarranted, but it's there. It's obviously being shown in the price action right here. And this is after we got through the worst of it in July. So if some of that fear is still there, then until that fear leaves the system, I think some of these stocks might still have to kind of wrestle with this pain. Redwire, good earnings. That was up 10%. That held on to it. AppCellera basically flat, even though they missed on EPS, but at least they held on to their earnings. Fluence, that's down 10%. Elf also had a great quarter. Elf was down 10%. I'm happy that it's recovered because Elf's quarter was amazing. So I don't know why it went down 10%. Oxy was up 2%. IONQ, also a decent quarter. That was up 5%. And then Joby, not too bad as all. That was up 2%. Did Take-Two have earnings today? Take-Two's up 3.4. I didn't see the results. Let me pull it up. Again, jobless claims came in lower than expected at 199 versus 205. I don't think they had earnings today, but is this the reason the stock is pumping? Netflix is doing a show on Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto 6, an extended look, coming to Netflix Thursday, August 27th. Okay, I don't know what that means, but oh, it's revealing itself on Netflix. Like, is this the infamous trailer that they're just exclusively giving to Netflix instead? All right, so maybe that's why the stock's up. But that is your core catalyst, right? Grand Theft Auto 6 and the sales that could come from them to get the street a bit more excited. Okay, so let's talk about some macro stuff. Those were pretty much all the earnings, and we'll see more of the price action as we get into the market open. Here is the latest from the Middle East and some of the stuff that Trump said yesterday about where this Iran situation is going.
Reached on the Strait of Hormuz to avoid a return to conflict. President Trump spoke overnight from Las Vegas about the Iranian regime.
We're knocking the hell out of it. I'd rather make a deal because I don't want to kill people. I do not want to kill people. But at some point we're gonna. We were set for the biggest attack of any attack, and we've hit them very hard for the last few months.
Reports indicate progress in talks between Iran and Oman aimed at opening the strait. This was all led in part by requests from Gulf allies who urged the president not to strike.
I can say that the latest situation is that almost all of the topics are under discussion. The map, the transit routes, the entering and exiting the maritime traffic, and those bilateral side agreements with Oman.
Amid the possibility of a return to conflict with Iran if an agreement isn't reached, President Trump posted to Truth Social overnight about reports the United States is running low on air defense interceptors. The president said, in part, the U.S. has massive amounts of munitions, especially of certain types. Additionally, large amounts are being manufactured and shipped to the U.S. as needed. Defense companies are building the largest number of plants and factories in our country's history. Vice President J.D. Vance described his relationship with the president as consequential decisions are being made about the conflict.
The president and I, first of all, he makes the decisions and we all try to implement the decisions in accordance with the president's wishes. So the president runs this administration. He is the very top of the administration. He makes orders. We, of course, have debates and conversations about what exactly we should do. But when the president of the United States makes a decision, we are unified in this administration in carrying out that mission.
Switching gears here, we are tracking another development out of Israel. The IDF says 2 of their soldiers were killed yesterday by a Hezbollah IED in southern Lebanon. That prompted the Israelis to renew strikes against the Iran-backed group. Guys?
All right, Trey.
So you have some tensions flaring up with Israel and Lebanon. You've got Trump, who every day says that we're talking to get a deal. You have reports this morning that he just said, which is the idea of the Iranians and the Omanis starting to come to a agreement. A deal between Iran and Oman declaring the Strait of Hormuz transit corridor is expected to be announced today. We talked about that headline yesterday. Iran has said talks with Oman are strictly bilateral, and the agreement is not necessarily a guarantee that the waterway has become safe for vessels. So it would be the first step in a long amount of steps to be able to get to the level that we need to get where the market would be happy with an actual ceasefire, like an MOU or something like that. But we don't have it yet. So once again, it's the same kind of story. There's always pressure on oil prices, 10-year, and as a result, equities. If this Iran situation is not resolved, the 10-year spiking up a little bit today, 4.645. At least it's below 4.7. But regardless, this is Trump's world at this point, and we're just living in it. And hopefully this Iran situation can come to an end soon. But as of now, we are still waiting for the kind of core major updates that the market has been looking for. And until we get those, I think, we're still going to be kind of stuck in this back and forth. A couple other quick earnings things, and then I want to show some stuff about Nebius that came out yesterday. This is really interesting. SMR, nuclear power, the street wanted $9 million in revenue. They came in at 75,000. So I think a decent chunk of people here in the chat make more than SMR makes as a public company. You just can't be doing this, dude. You can't be like, this is not going to make nuclear energy seem serious to the masses if you're meeting or missing expectations like that. So you had some of those types of earnings where 99% miss on expectations is not going to keep the street happy for what's going on. Then you had this headline yesterday, which, I mean, if Bloomberg's right about that, this is something we've been talking about, which is scary, dude. It is scary, and it's something you can't ignore easily. You can try to ignore it, but at some point it's going to come back around. Microsoft's AI sales are now 70% generated from OpenAI. The company recorded $24.1 billion in sales from OpenAI during the year ending in June, and OpenAI accounted for more than half of Microsoft's actual AI sales. The disclosure suggests that OpenAI's share of Microsoft business is about 70% of its actual AI sales during its most recent fiscal year. Once again, the hyperscalers are showing massive CapEx, and they're showing numbers around an ROI for that CapEx. I don't think anyone's denying that Microsoft, Amazon, Google are growing the cloud like crazy. But, and there is a but that cannot be ignored. And I feel like people try to ignore it all the time and be like, it's not a big issue. It's like, hold on. Like, if you want to be a good bull, you have to understand the bear case. If a lot of that AI revenue, which is never disclosed, or a lot of that RPO, which is also not really disclosed, is coming from OpenAI and Anthropic, then we have to make sure OpenAI and Anthropic don't fail. And if those guys have issues, the hyperscalers, they're going to have issues with their demand. Not to mention, Google just filed for another $25 billion of debt today, which is why the credit default swaps on Google are spiking again, because, even though the market knows they can afford to take out the debt, they are taking out more debt, and Street's not the happiest about that. So there are some of these things where, when these headlines start circulating a lot more, you get people wondering about the circular financing thing. Also, the Google chief of DeepMind yesterday left to become the chair of the company. This is just really weird. I don't understand why that happened. We are in like the greatest time to be analyzing and working in AI. and one of the most popular figures. You know, he wasn't just popular at Google. He was like a cultural icon when it came to his takes on AI. Like if Demis actually said something about AI, people would listen and take it seriously. And he's stepping down from that position. Like that was just weird for me to see. Very weird. And there's already concerns that Google is losing market share to OpenAI and Anthropic when it comes to actually implementing AI outside of their cloud infrastructure inside of the enterprise, you know, in the context of actual business workflows, because Gemini is just not that good enough. So that was a weird headline that definitely upset some of the AI trade, probably also could be affecting SanDisk and just anything tied to the AI trade. And then the 70% of Microsoft AI sales being OpenAI, it's not something you necessarily want to see. Now, Microsoft did say that 25% of their recent RPO that they acquired in Q2 was not OpenAI related. So it was important that they disclosed that. But if the majority of that 24 billion came from OpenAI last year, you know, that's a little bit of an issue. So again, these are not necessarily bear cases that destroy the entire thesis, but it is naive to not look at those things because, again, simple bear case, the way it plays out, open source model is better than GPT one day. Whatever version of GPT comes out costs 95% less. Tons of enterprises are really like, this is way better. This is way cheaper. I'm going to adopt that. OpenAI can't generate a margin. OpenAI's growth starts slowing down. Same thing with Anthropic. And then the revenue they were given to Microsoft, the backlog the TPUs they were supposed to buy from Google, all of that starts getting discounted, or they need to raise debt. Anthropic's raising more debt as well. Or they need to, you know, dilute more, which means they need to go public, and then they start dumping on retail. Like there's just so many different ways that this could play out that can turn out nasty. There's also ways that it turns out that it is fantastic and all the hyperscalers do great. And, you know, the story isn't broken, but I think understanding both perspectives is super important. Micron right there down about 5%. Celestica with the debt offering, that's down 14%. Robinhood down 1%. AppLovin still down 18% as well. Okay, Nebius. So this is really interesting, and it's a little bearish, but nonetheless, the bearishness is coming from an actual former Nebius employee. So there are these things on Wall Street called expert networks, and former employees speak to these networks to give them insight about companies, and then that expert network sells that data to hedge funds and all that stuff. So there was an interview with a former Nebius employee that was done at one of these expert networks. And here are 4 things that they said. In his view, the recent announced revenue share model of NVIDIA with neoclouds like Sharon AI and Firmus was much more of a result of Firmus, according to him, having financial trouble and Sharon AI having problems regarding customers and investors, which is what a lot of people were saying, that NVIDIA is, you know, kind of the lender of last resort. Number 2, he thinks the neoclouds hate this new model by NVIDIA, as NVIDIA has all the leverage over them. At the same time, they are paying a higher price for GPUs because they don't get the high discounts on buying in bulk. I think that's a fair point. I mean, the neocloud announcement by NVIDIA 2 weeks ago, actually, I think that was a month ago. That was like, yeah, early July. That was painted as like super bullish for Nebius and CoreWeave. You have a Nebius employee saying, actually, we think that the neoclouds don't like it because it means NVIDIA has even more leverage over the ability for those GPUs to actually get dispersed and then ultimately rented out to create a margin. Number 3, he thinks that Nebius and CoreWeave would do these type of deals if they needed the capital, and he thinks CoreWeave is in a worse position as they have significant financial gap given their deals. Number 4, he mentions the relationship between CoreWeave and NVIDIA getting worse as CoreWeave was upset that NVIDIA didn't deliver the GPUs that CoreWeave needed. According to him, they even threatened to go with another ASIC provider, which NVIDIA would have been really upset about. At the same time, NVIDIA is, according to him, upset with CoreWeave as they're not respecting the roadmap that NVIDIA wants. CoreWeave wants to go after big clients for large deals, while NVIDIA wants CoreWeave to adopt a more sophisticated enterprise approach to provide more professional services, which would make them more sustainable. So I understand why NVIDIA is trying to do that. But CoreWeave also is like, dude, we have all this backlog. We need to go supply it. We need more GPUs. And that's sort of the tension between the two. According to him, Meta has around 400,000 GPUs, H100s, H200s, and some Blackwells, and they want to sell all that compute on the market, and that is going to put extreme pressure on the neoclouds, especially the lower end ones that are deploying older GPUs. I don't think that necessarily hurts Nebius and CoreWeave per se, because they have up-to-date GPUs. They're, you know, at the front of the line to get the Vera Rubins, but your Cyphers, your Wolfs, your Applied Digitals, I'm just saying neoclouds off the top of my head, the ones that I know that don't have the most amount of backlog as Nebius and CoreWeave, or don't have the most amount of priority for the latest GPUs that Jensen hasn't explicitly said, you know, those neoclouds will get access to. Those are the ones that theoretically could be hit if Meta gets priority, and then Meta immediately starts flooding the market, and, you know, you have that excess compute. Although Meta on the call didn't act like they were ready to do that, which is why I think the stock took a hit for Meta earnings, because, you know, they didn't really double down on how important AWS compute was. So from that perspective, you know, the neocloud trade, I don't think that's why Nebius is down right here. I think Nebius is down because SanDisk is down and Micron's down. But, you have a Nebius employee coming out, former employee, saying, hey, there are some elements to this NeoCloud trade that are to be questioned. And that new NVIDIA, and the reason NVIDIA is doing this again is because when they sell the GPU, NVIDIA makes a one-time fee. If they have this revenue share with a Nebius and a CoreWeave and Iran and Applied Digital, then they get to monetize that GPU in perpetuity because they're sharing on the revenue that Nebius and CoreWeave are getting from renting out that GPU, but they're also financing and giving discounts to those NeoClouds to buy those GPUs. So theoretically, at the end of it, NVIDIA does make a bit more than what they would be making on just the one-time sale. And they get to, once again, distribute more compute because they get more of that stuff out there, and they get to make sure they can finance that compute for all the players that have demand but don't have the money to get those GPUs. It just, the market looks at NVIDIA as like the top of the house of cards that can't fall apart, because then all these NeoClouds fall apart as well. So, yeah, again, I don't think that's why Nebius is down or the NeoClouds are down. I think it's more a Micron, but one thing to think about for here. Oracle, is that down in the pre-market? That is also down about 3.5% as well. So that was most of the macro news in the context of Iran, NeoClouds, and memory. Cost began was down 6%. Oh, this headline was kind of crazy as well. So Leopold is back. He just put $400 million into a new private stock or private company. We don't know what the company is. My guess is FluidStack, because they just, Situational Awareness was the lead LP for the recent $700 million raise. So I think he's going deeper into that. That's just my guess, because I don't know what other private company it would be. But yeah, I mean, dude got married, lost $35 billion, and said, I'm right back, and $400 million into a new private company. So it's one of those things where I don't think he's going to be going away anytime soon, but it's probably going to be more in the private markets now. Wow, Western Digital really getting hit here in the pre-market, 17% down. Again, guys, this memory trade, it's one of those things where, and I asked this a week ago, who's holding on to the memory names for 5 years? And 99% of you said no. So it's like, we have to acknowledge it's a trade. I mean, just like no one is willing to hold these names for the next 5 years, which means it's a trade. Not even the next 2 years, 3 years. That means that during the moments of the trade, there are going to be these really, really ugly downturns, and the question is going to be: is there enough stamina, momentum, and excitement? If it's a trade for retail, it can also be a trade for the institutions, right? The institutional investors are just people at the end of the day that might freak out and think that they made the wrong trade and then just sell. And for Western Digital and Sandisk to put up the level of growth that they did, but for it to not be good enough, I don't even know if that's macro related. Once again, I think that's more memory related, and the street once again feeling, hey, maybe this is just not the type of growth that we think is fully sustainable. Having said that, at some point, the multiples truly get stupid. And I already think the multiples on many of the memory names are ridiculous, which is why, as a short-term bounce, I think it would not surprise me if Sandisk reverses 10% when we get into the open, because people are just like, this is dumb. It really wouldn't. But if that doesn't happen and sentiment is still depressed, then there's going to need to be another catalyst to get this to kind of flip out. A lot of things are a trade then. Yeah, a lot of things are a trade. But I don't think Shopify is a trade. I think you can own Shopify for the next 5 years. I don't think the hyperscalers are a trade. You can own them for 5 years, right? I mean, there's names in the semi-stack like NVIDIA and AMD that I think don't have to necessarily be trades, because, again, they have moats. Not everyone can replicate an MI 450 or a Vera Rubin very easily. But, there's a lot of companies that can become NeoClouds, which we've seen. So maybe the NeoClouds are a much more sustainable trade, but they still are competing with a lot of it. Like, once you have a lot of competitors in your arena, it's a little tough to generate a ton of margin. And the memory names have done that with few competitors because of the supply-demand issue. But once again, there's different nuances to that supply-demand issue. So if Jensen is right in the semiconductor index 10x's, or he said industry 10x's over the next 5 years, it doesn't matter, because, I mean, we're talking about market caps that we're talking about many multi-trillion-dollar companies. If he's wrong about that, then, some of these names are just not going to reach that level of growth and momentum in a more meaningful way. Why Shopify not a trade? Because I think in 5 years, there will be plenty of entrepreneurs on planet Earth that will be using Shopify's platform to keep selling, and Shopify will be able to generate a margin and continue to grow. In 5 years, will Micron have 85% gross margins? Even if memory demand is massive, will there be a ton more supply than expected? And maybe the answer to that is no. Maybe the answer to that is there will be so much more demand for memory in 5 years And we will be so much more constrained. And Micron will be able to either keep their margins or even raise them because of how well the position that they are in, that the trade will become longer than 5 years, right? It's just, I don't know how many people believe that. And again, it's not just on memory, but it's on photonics, optics, all the other different parts of the stack, energy to an extent. I mean, energy was definitely a trade this year. You bought it low at the beginning of the year. You could sold at 120. All the energy stocks have pumped, and some of them have maintained their pump, but a lot of them, have fallen off from their highs because energy has fallen 40% from the highs. AMD right there down about 2% as well. And so I just think the market is wondering now how much of this is something they should trade versus how much of this is something is more fundamental right here. Sandisk now down 13%. That one is getting a hit. We got about 3 minutes until the market open. CoreWeave down about 5% as well. We talked about the Google news and Demis leaving. It's also August, though. I want to continue reiterating that. July and August suck for high beta stocks. August is much worse than July. So honestly, a lot of this price action could just be rooted in unfortunate timing for a lot of these earnings, because August is just not that fun. By the way, Nikita is leaving X, which is really weird. This guy is like the most important person at X outside of Elon when it comes to actually like making product decisions. And he grew the company like 1,000% over the past year. It's like in the top 10 downloads every day. So why is he leaving X, right? Why would you leave that type of job? Like, that makes no sense. Until you realize that the only way you can sell your SpaceX stock is if you're not an executive at the company. And so now that he's not an executive at the company, he's just an advisor. I think, ironically, on the day that 911 million shares are getting unlocked, I think Nikita will have a decent amount of opportunity to get liquid. So, I mean, that's my conspiracy for why would you leave the day before $100 billion worth of stock gets unlocked? And he joined back in 23. I think he has a lot of stock that is now turned into SpaceX stock that he probably got when, Twitter was 40 billion. SpaceX is now worth 1.5 trillion. So, I mean, if you're sitting on $200 million worth of stock, it's either you could be an executive at X or you can sell their stock, and maybe it's that. So that's my perspective on it. But that was confusing, man. He's a very, very important person on X, and he's made a lot of product changes that has really changed the platform in and of itself. So maybe that's the reason that's happening. All right, so we have 30 seconds until the market opens. We are going to be looking at SpaceX and see if these sells end up actually affecting the stock. SoundHound, one of the only AI names that's up 24% of the pre-market. Every stock that reported earnings yesterday, outside of like 2 or 3 of them, ended up taking a very, very nasty hit. Sandisk will also be a big story today. I want this thing to pump because Sandisk is important for the entire high beta trade. So maybe it needs a little bit of a flush out for the first 20 minutes, and then we can start getting some recovery. And hopefully that can help SAS. But Sandisk is on deck. Nebis is on deck. SpaceX is on deck. Hopefully a lot of these other high beta momentum plays get a bit more love. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thursday, August 6th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Sandisk opens down 13%, 1186 on Mr. Sandisk. It fell to 998 2 weeks ago. So until we get down to that below 1,000 level, we have not hit the 52-week lows yet. Meta 588, that opens down. D-Wave down 11%. Salesforce down 4%. Figma down 20%. As that takes a hit. Zeta down 1.5, Celsius down 14, Datadog down 18%, Celestica down 14%. Palantir actually was at 153 pre-market, now it's at 155. So we got a little bit of a candle, but still down about 1.73%. DRAM's down 8%, Robinhood 91.23, that's down 2%. AppLovin, that's down 18%. ServiceNow's down 4%. Fastly, which was up 12% yesterday, is now down 11%. Fluence Energy actually was down a lot more. Now it's only down 7. It was down 30. Viavi's down 6%. Oxy's up. IONQ is up. Shopify goes green. Western Digital is down 20. That's kind of crazy. That's a little crazy for Western Digital. SpaceX is red by about $1. 113 to 107 from the pre-market. 108 to 107 right now. So down about 0.5%, but not really. It did touch 105 for a second, and then it got bounced right there. NVIDIA goes green, 221.65. It's been a while since we've seen an NVIDIA get green. Honest is up 44%. They had a good earnings. Again, this is a small cap, so 44% is not a massive move on the amount of market cap that's there, but nonetheless, it is a name that could move 45% because, I mean, there's not a lot of shares outstanding, and it's like less than $700 million. But good earnings. If you're in it, you got to be happy. It's up $1.70 right there, 44%, as that one goes green. Shopify, that's up 1.6%. Oracle, that's down 3%. Western Digital, that is down 19%. Axon, also great earnings. The stock has been depressed for the past 2 years, or really since January, since kind of the SaaS apocalypse started becoming a bit more aggressive. 617 went from 800 to 300. That's getting a lot more love. Elf, that one should be up. They had a great earnings. There you go, 11% right there. That one had no reason to really get hit yesterday. Elf and Honest getting some love. It's been about a month again since we've seen NVIDIA hit 220. Yesterday it hit it for the first time since June. So it's nice to see it at least kind of starting to normalize a bit at those levels. Sandisk now just hit a low of day. Let's see if that continues right there. 1181. Nebius, wow, 203. I think that's just basically following Micron. Micron, 830. Yeah, I mean, it's tough for Micron to be up if Sandisk is going to be down like that. 839, that's down 7. I kind of think it's a little fake, though. I mean, Micron's only reacting to Sandisk, so if Sandisk has any level of intraday bottom, I think we see a pretty big reversal from Micron. But nonetheless, this has kind of been the story for the memory names, you know, for the past 2 weeks, is like they get a one-day pump, then a one-day dump, then a one-day pump, and a one-day dump. Sometimes 1 hour pump, next hour dump, and they haven't really been able to find their footing in a trend. Sandisk has basically been stuck between 1,000 and 1,400, and Micron's been stuck between 800 and 980, effective 950, 980. So it's kind of just sticking in the range that it's been in. HubSpot, 24% down. This is a classic candidate for the street thinking SaaS is dead, and their numbers didn't really prove that SaaS was not dead from their perspective. Microsoft 490, Google 363, even after Demis left yesterday. App 11 still down 16%, then ServiceNow down 3%. Oscar, great earnings, but the street doesn't like it. I actually am confused why. Probably because it's an ugly data report, but 13% down on Oscar feels a bit unwarranted after it was up 16. So we're talking about a 30% reversal. That one's getting hit. AMD continues to go down as well. Dutch Bros is also down 17%. Dutch Bros is always traded at a relatively expensive multiple. And the earnings yesterday were good, but I mean, they're growing faster than a lot of tech companies at 27%. But yeah, once again, like Sandisk, you just need a much, much higher level of beat for the street to be excited. Is SoFi green? SoFi is green, 1819. Well, almost. Yes, Demis didn't leave Google, guys, but he left his role at Google. Like, becoming executive chairman is not focused on the day-to-day AI tasks. It's basically, I mean, like, that's why the street took it down 5%, because they trusted Demis, and now the guy's just going to be in a boardroom instead of actually on the front lines doing shit. And so the street's upset about it. So yes, he did not leave Google, but he is not going to be as involved day to day as he was when he was in charge of AI at the company. So I get why the street's upset about it. Now, is it a bear case for Google? No, but like, it is weird in my opinion. It is kind of weird. I didn't expect him to leave like that. Now, again, maybe there's some personal stuff, but if you ever watch his interviews, he talks about staying up till 3 a.m. and sleeping only 2 hours a day because he's so excited about AI. And then you just dip, and now you're just the chairman of the board. Like, it was weird to even see that happen. Axon right there, still down about 2%. As that one is also still getting hit. SpaceX, are we getting a move? We are stuck at 109. So you're not seeing a dump there. Again, kind of we talked about in the pre-market, could be priced in given how bad the stock fell from earnings at 130. And so we also have to see at what point do those shares get unlocked. You know, is it systematic? Is it in groups? Institutions get unlocked. Certain VCs get unlocked. Those VCs have to decide if they want to distribute to their LPs. Like, you have all those different questions here around what will happen to those shares and when they get dispersed and if they get dispersed. NVIDIA actually going for it today. Out of all the semis, NVIDIA making the move. 223.30 as that continues to get a green move. Honest and NVIDIA are kind of the main ones today, getting some of that love. Now, Honest is down 58% over the past 5 years. Year to date with this 50% move, it's now up 116%. And over the past year, it's up 26%. So obviously, over the past couple of years, this name has taken a pretty big beating. December of 24, it was $8, bottomed at $2 in January of 26. But since then, it has made a bigger move up. Meet Kevin says he's dumping when he's allowed to for SpaceX. Yeah, again, a lot of the people that I know privately that are in it are also going to get out when they can. But, you know, there's probably a decent chunk of people that, who knows, they want to see how the thing plays out and give it a chance to run. And there will probably be a sizable amount of that 116 billion that doesn't sell before the ones that do sell. And then, you know, you get some bad macro in the mix. Like, that's just a lot of pressure on those shares. And so the question is going to be, how badly does they get priced in if it ends up getting priced in? NVIDIA still up 223, Nebius down 5. Sandisk is still down 10 right here. It was down 12. So you have a small bounce of 2%. And maybe that's the momentum needed to get it to try to go for 1,300, which is basically where it was at yesterday before the earnings. That would help Nebius. That would help Micron. Micron already trying to get a little recovery right there. Figma still down 20. I think that's a bit ridiculous, but I don't know. It's almost like the street once again is afraid that Anthropic is going to kill all the design moat that Figma has. Zeta's down 1, Celsius down 13, Palantir down 2.4. I wouldn't buy Figma here. I'm still doing due diligence on this. I'm trying to understand the company at a deeper level. I was actually reading some stuff last night about designers and why they think Figma has a moat. And, you know, there were a few designers. It was this article I was reading that were like, theoretically, Anthropic could replace them, but ultimately, you know, you need their application that pitches everything or mixes everything together. But then you read some of the sell side bear analysts, and they're just like, look, if you look at the stock-based comp and they look at the revenue growth, you look at the sustainability of their earnings, they just went public. It's not like the most exciting SaaS name that's out there, which is fair. It's just not. Like, there's a lot of other SaaS names that are more exciting. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be dead money for a while as the street tries to figure out where design is going or if it can just get the rebound. But it was at 28 bucks yesterday. So for it to be down at 18 here off of 48% revenue growth seems a bit weird. Zillow right there, that's down 11% as well. Yeah, stock-based comp, at least when I was going through the numbers, stock-based comp was my biggest red flag. And you can ignore that if like there's massive growth and the market is like seeing a bigger story, but how long can that massive growth actually continue to go on for? Wall Street Journal, Trump has called Warsh repeatedly since he became Fed chair. Trump has sought Warsh's counsel on issues such as Iran war's effect on the economy. That's probably why Kevin Warsh didn't want to answer that question about if he's talked to Trump in the past 3 months. The answer truthfully, like, bro, Trump is blowing my line as we speak right now. He's like got 10 unread text messages from him. Look, that actually makes sense. I mean, if anything, that just means that Warsh is understanding that Trump wants to get inflation to come down. And Trump also understands that he needs to get oil to come down to give Warsh an easier job, which continues to lead me to believe that they will figure out this oil situation. But oil 76.20 up about 1% today. You had a couple of Fed members say yesterday that they're going to hike rates, but the Fed probabilities actually went a lot lower for September. It was at like 75%. Now it's at like 60%. So you are seeing the market kind of price out that September hike, which A, would be bullish, but B, would be really important to keep us at anywhere near all-time highs. If we get a hike, I just don't think the market's going to easily digest that for a few months. S&P right there, 770, as that continues to go green. Sandisk, are we still down? Oh, wow, there's the green candle. Okay, it went from down almost 14 to down 9. We've seen this happen many times intraday for Sandisk. This has a lot more work to do, but If it can catch on to a trend, I think that would flip a lot of these names. Robinhood back up to 92. SPY back up green. Celsius still down 14. SpaceX holding on to 109. And then Nvidia just below 223. Still a 63% chance for a rate hike this year. Yes, still a chance. But the fact that that was 75 and it's gone down makes me somewhat confident that it will continue to go down. But obviously we need inflation to actually come down. Let me check resistance for Nvidia at 225. 400,000 shares. 224 is 63,000 shares. So 400,000, kind of like yesterday's 220, is what we need to break out of. Clover Health is up 23%. Clover, Honest, you're seeing a bunch of these like companies from 2021 that died out for the past 4 years. That's kind of crazy, dude. Those companies from 2021 that were dead for the past 4 years are breaking out today. And Sandisk delivering some of the best earnings you've seen out of a company in the semiconductor stack goes down 8%. I mean, it's just, and again, Clover and Honest probably deserve that momentum, but Sandisk probably doesn't deserve to be down 9% right there. Oscar down 11, Micron still down 4, except for GameStop. Yeah, GameStop's the only one. I mean, well, there's a bunch of them, but GameStop's the poster child of 2021 that never really, outside of May of 24, when what's his name live streamed. Do you guys remember that live stream with Warren Kitty? I was with Arnie. We were at our first AIP con, and we were in the Airbnb, and we woke up the next morning, and he went live, and he was late for like 40 minutes, and then he went on, and he kept saying like, "This is not financial advice," and it's like, dude, like you're the guy. Like, what are you like? Is there a lawyer in the back of the room with a gun to your head or something? It's like, it was so weird. But he did have like a $300 million position at the time when it started pumping again. Sandisk 1238, still trying to go for it. Chime had a great quarter. Yeah, again, Chime, Clover, Honest, a lot of these smaller companies that honestly have been depressed for about a year and a half now. I mean, that's probably the story, right? Sandisk has gone parabolic, so it's taken a break. Clover, Honest, Chime, they've been stuck. So they're finally getting some love on good earnings. That might be the simplest way to kind of explain what's happening here. App Lovin', that one's still getting hit. Oh, Meta's AI model came out yesterday. Meta Muse Spark 1.1. They had a new update for it. Two things. Zuck said that he has a lot more to talk about open source when someone asked if it's going to be open source soon. And then secondly, they said that it hacked a company and accessed the internet. So I think Zuck is trying to make the point that like we've got something potentially as powerful as Mythos, which is really good for Meta because it means that they're training models very effectively. But it also means that cybersecurity once again goes into question as how much people are willing to pay to make sure that these models don't end up hacking their companies. But I also think Zuck is kind of trying to say it as a flex. It's like, yeah, our model hacked a company. It accessed the internet, we're trying to make sure that we monitor the situation. It's like, bro, you're just trying to pump the model and make people think your model's super important. But it might be. And so I think that's why Meta got a little bit of love after hours. Google goes red. Google goes red. Microsoft at 492. SoFi's earnings were better than Chime. Yes, 1,000% they're better than Chime. Dude, SoFi got a downgrade today again to $16. Like, I don't get why the street hates this stock so much. Like they legitimately despise this stock. There's like one person that I think has a $30 target on it, and like everyone else is like stuck at 18 or 20 or below 18, and it's just like, why? Why do they hate this stock so much? Like Chime's at an $11 billion market cap. SoFi's at 23. And SoFi's growing and doing a lot more revenue and profit and adjusted EBITDA and net income than Chime. So it is weird. Salesforce down 5. Yeah, they have a way better user. Yeah, Chime's user base is not necessarily the type of user base. Dude, I went on SoFi's website the other day because I was just playing with it, and I applied for a loan for $100,000, and they were like, no. I was like, really? Like, they rejected me for a loan. I was like, A, I think that's kind of weird. I was like, okay, maybe you got to fix some part of your underwriting. But B, I was like, okay, I guess you need someone to be worth like $50 million to give them a loan or something. But like, they are so stringent on their underwriting, which is kind of bullish because it means like, you know, they're really going to make sure they don't get delinquent. I was just a little surprised because I was like, I think I can afford to pay back, you know, the 15% interest or whatever they're going to charge me, but they are strict. They rejected me as well. Yeah, so many of you in the chat have told me, but they rejected Chris a year ago. And that's when Chris was like, okay, these guys don't play around. They are making sure they get their money back. They are making sure they don't get delinquent. Meta right there, 590. But Chime is you know, serving a user base that's not as affluent. So, you know, it is weird how the street's thinking of SoFi in comparison to that. Akamai, that's down 2%. Flutter, that's down. Oh, Burry sold all of his DraftKings yesterday. Open Door down 7. My credit score is not 500. I have a very good credit score. That's another reason I was like, dude, my credit score is pretty damn good. Like, but it makes me bullish because it's like, you know, when you talk about delinquency rates, like SoFi knows they're a smaller bank. They cannot afford any level of a chance of, you know, not making their money back. Enphase right there, that's up a little bit. And then Apple, what do you know, getting some love when the high beta goes down. Sandisk T1 is going up. Sandisk now down 7. It's had about 5 minutes of green candles. Let's see if we can have that flip or not. Do we have any other macro data today? Let me see. NVIDIA really doing her thing here. Let's see, 224, about 40,000 shares. Been a long time since we got there. The 10-year still spiking up. US-based employers announced 33,000 job cuts in July, the fewest in 2 years, down 27% from June and 46% compared to the same month last year. Wow. AI led all reasons for job cuts for a 5th straight month, while the tech sector cuts the most jobs, followed by financial, government, and services. Yeah, this labor market, based on this data, once again, is not in a bad position. It's just inflation. If we can calm down inflation, GDP growth should be in a good spot. Sandisk now only down 6. You guys see if that one can actually get this move right back up. I mean, it's because you have no job. Self-employed means unemployed means you can't pay anything back. That's fair. They did ask, though, for like my income and stuff, even though I'm self-employed, and I put it in, and I don't know. I was still surprised that they rejected me. But that is true. If you're self-employed, there's probably more risk because, you know, you don't actually have the stability with an employer. SpaceX right there, 109. Let's see, man, if Sandisk can, if this is not fake, if Sandisk can actually go for that full recovery, 1,350 would be that level. AppLovin also at 340. This thing hit 350 last night, now back to 339, but at least it's up from 300. It'd be so funny, dude, if Sandisk gets back up to like 1,500 and then all the sell side comes out and say, yeah, you know, we're actually upgrading our price after all of them downgraded it today. Like all of them. Like if Sandisk was up 10% yesterday, I genuinely wonder if all of them would have came out and downgraded the price targets, because they were really happy to upgrade it to 3,000 a couple months ago. And now it's just kind of stuck. Micron almost green, 875. This is like every day for Micron or for memory in general, man. You buy that 930 open or you short the 930 rip, and then it just goes the opposite direction, and you benefit from the price action right there. Rocket Lab 75, as that continues to go green as well. I'm getting tired of Duolingo. Do I sell it and buy Micron? I think once again, you got to ask yourself, are you in Duolingo for a long-term thesis? Or are you like, if you're in Duolingo, you have to be in it for the long term. I don't know anyone who's buying Duolingo as a trade. Like maybe at the very lows at 90, you could have justified it as a pure trade. But you got to believe that they're going to compound users and growth, and language learning will become one of the most important elements of how people use AI. If not, yeah, I'd probably buy Micron. I mean, now I'm not going to hold on to Micron forever, but like, I feel like Micron will, Micron will go up 11% and recover that Duolingo down 11% in like a day. It could also go down 11%, but I probably would feel more comfortable with memory versus language learning. Oh yeah, Rocket Lab is on Monday for earnings. So we'll take a look at that. Corning, that should be up today as well. That is green. Yep, that's up 2%. HIMS still getting sued, down 3, but at least it's above 30, which is nice. SpaceX still holding on, not really getting hit. Maybe would you trim Palantir here? I don't think those Palantir earnings require a trim. However, I don't think selling calls here is crazy. I mean, it had a massive move, 30%. So, calls at 175, 180 a month out. And if it gets there, I think you can easily roll it because, again, the problem with rolling calls is when it gets to your strike, if you roll it and it just keeps going up, then you get underwater. But if it gets to your strike, hopefully your strike was so far away that it's made such a massive move that when you roll it out, theoretically, even at the same strike, maybe a little bit higher, it consolidates because you just don't expect it to go parabolic. And I don't know, does Palantir at 200 by the end of the year? I don't know. I don't know if the macro is good enough to let it get there, but I think a consolidation between 140 and 160 would be perfect in my opinion. We don't need it to jump back up to 200 anytime soon. I just don't want it to go back to down to the 120s. So I don't think you sell because that quarter was just too damn good, especially if you have that core position, but selling calls here is not the craziest thing. Figma right there down 16% as that's down. But then again, if you're on margin, if you're on leverage, like, yeah, get some risk off the table. If you went on margin to buy Palantir at 120 and you did it with money that's not yours and it's at 153, like, give back the money that's not yours and take some profits. It's just in this environment, if things flip, I mean, again, everything was amazing last year until October came. And it hurt a lot of people. And a lot of it was because, people were playing with money that wasn't there. So if that were to happen again going into the midterms, and dude, the midterms are still a wild card, man. Like, I don't know what's going to happen into the midterms. I don't know how the results are going to be interpreted. If the Democrats take the House or the Senate, like what happens to all these different stocks that are, particularly prone to policies that the Democrats might not like. There's so many different nuances to it that could just shake markets up. So not being levered there, I think, would be super important. Shopify 147. As that continues to go green. Microsoft actually getting some love, even though the software names are selling off. Microsoft, we have not seen 500 in over a year. Let's see. 500 resistance on Microsoft. What do you guys think it is? What do you guys think? 500 resistance. 295,000 shares. So NVIDIA's is 400,000 for 225. I mean, if the hyperscale is actually pumped today while everything else is down, it wouldn't be that surprising. But we would want to kind of see it happen. By the way, speaking of Palantir, did you guys know that freaking Shark Ninja is using Palantir now? Couldn't believe it. Shark Ninja. We went live a couple of weeks ago with a phase 1 initiative on promotions and optimization management with Palantir. The first couple of weeks, the results of that showed a lot of promise to the point where we actually now have moved ahead with phase 2 initiative with Palantir. That'll take about 4 months to implement. I think you'll see the benefits of Palantir work coming in through Q4 promotions and Q4 planning, primarily in the US, UK, Germany, and France. I mean, Shark Ninja, out of all companies. Like every day, there's a new one that's seeing the real benefits of Palantir. And if they actually are, like, notice how they're saying phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, not, hey, we paid them $10 million and now we procured their software. It's like, no, it's a process. And the CEO of Shark Ninja wants to see outcomes and results because that's the whole point of paying for enterprise software. And when he sees that it's actually changing his company, he's going to pay the amount of money that Palantir asks for, which is why on 1,000 customers, they can generate $2 billion of revenue. Like that is why this story is so exciting, and their growth trajectory is also very, very encouraging going into the future. Shark Ninja, that stock has done very well over the past couple of years. Well, 183, yeah, it's up 3x in the past 3 years. Are the SpaceX shares unlocked? Again, we don't exactly know. Theoretically, yes, but you've got tons of VCs and former employees that maybe at 11:30 gets unlocked, maybe at the end of the day it gets unlocked. A lot of these VCs have to distribute it to their LPs. Those LPs have to distribute it to their other managers that control their assets. I mean, it's not one of those things where it immediately just like opens and the shares are there. But today, they will have access to it. And the question will just be, do they sell aggressively towards it? NVIDIA 222 down from 223. Volume on SpaceX is 90 million, which, I mean, the average volume is 117 million. So it definitely leads me to believe if you're doing that much volume within 20 minutes, you have had shares probably trade hands right here. Sandisk only down 6.5, and then SoFi 18.17. Hala says Amex offered me a 45,000 unsecured at 10%. I was surprised SoFi has a higher rate. Yeah, I think SoFi's is like 15%, right? 15 to 20. 45 at 10 is not crazy. But they're just so diligent on who they pick. HubSpot's still down 18. Interesting that all of SaaS has taken a hit today outside of Microsoft. Meta's still relatively flat. US ETFs for the year have attracted 1.2 trillion. So once again, people continue to bet on United States stocks as we have $1 trillion 7 months into the year that have officially come into assets. Also, a lot of people asking about gold. I mean, this is not necessarily something new for people to look at, but China continues to buy a ton of gold. China gold-backed ETFs have recorded 14 consecutive daily inflows, 1.2 billion over the past 2 weeks. And China's gold-backed ETFs recorded outflows in 38 days of the 44 trading sessions before you have this gold rebound. So gold, which right now is up another 0.5% after a 5% day. It feels like the Chinese and the central bankers are kind of the core catalyst for pumping it. Why is Hood still below 100? I do not know. It's weird. It is genuinely weird with this type of rebound and for Hood to be stuck below 100 after their earnings. I will say, though, if August ends up being ugly, then because Hood is already under 100, Hood could stay below 100, which would suck, but it is what it is. But honestly, I can't find the red flag in that quarter to be like, yeah, this is the core reason it's stuck right here. Celsius down 15, HubSpot down 18 as well. By the way, the other thing about Hood, I was watching an interview yesterday. There have been 7 million people signed up to the Trump accounts. All of those assets, all of those users, they're not in Hood's numbers. Robin is just the custodian of it. And the CFO said eventually they will include that in their numbers, which means, Q2 of next year, they might officially start reporting those assets and users in their numbers and get this massive bump, which they would deserve because, again, they're the custodian of the assets and they're migrating them to their platform. So a lot of that growth is not even baked in on the Trump accounts. Now, the assets are not going to be crazy because it's like $1,000 but per account. But still, you do have a decent chunk of money being custodian by Hood. Sandisk down 5. This is the highest Sandisk has been all day. SK Hynix is also down 5% because of those Sandisk earnings, but that's getting a green candle from 137. AMD trying to get back right up. Oh, AMD goes green after a 10% hit. Let's see if that can run to 490 at least after earnings. Do you still think we're getting 10% down the S&P? No, I still don't see it, guys. Still don't see 10% down on the S&P. I could see like 5%, 7%. What's the catalyst? Once again, what's the catalyst? Like, the S&P doesn't fall 10% for the hell of it. Like, there needs to be something that triggers a cascading moment of events like we saw in July, which took a month to get to. It took a month to get to that top, and then it took a month to unwind it. I mean, 10%, we're talking about $7 trillion that would be wiped out of the S&P. For what? Especially if the war comes to an end. I think there would have to be something bigger. Rocket Lab, 77. Rocket Lab looking like that one wants to go back to the 80s, which would be nice. By the way, speaking of the 80s, I have officially listened to a song, not from the 80s, but from 1975, because I was watching a video on the top 10 greatest songs of all time. And so I've officially listened to one of these songs. I don't know if it's a top 10 song of all time. It's a good song, but like, I wonder if you guys think it's a top 10 song. Bohemian Rhapsody. I listened to that for the first time yesterday. It was a good song, but top 10 all time. I was like, and that list had it at number 1. I was like, this is interesting. This is very interesting. But like, it was catchy. I just didn't know if you want to give it like number 1 all time. Robbing it back to 92. Zeta still down 2% as well. I'm not saying it's not a classic. I'm just saying, is it the best song of all time? Because I feel like you could argue with that, you know? Yes, it was my first time. Yes, it's the first time I listened to Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, I've heard the name Bohemian Rhapsody, but I never like actually sat down and listened to it. You'll say I actually like put it on YouTube and listened to it. Because there's some reel that popped up in the top 10 songs of all time. They said Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. And I've heard of them, but I've never actually heard the song. And I was like, okay, this is a good song. Number 1, I don't know. Dell, that's down 4. That was at 485 yesterday. Bloom as well is up 1%. Last says, I agree, the song is overrated. Okay, I'm not saying it's overrated. I don't have an opinion enough to say it's overrated. I know it's a long song. It's over 6 minutes. Dude, it kept going. I was like, all right, when is this shit? I've got shit to do. Like, when is this over with? But I still don't understand what the song's about either. It's like, Mama, I killed it. I was like, okay, what is he talking about? Like, I still gotta understand what the hell the song's about. But I don't know if it's the best song of all time. Unity, that's up 10% as well. As that continues to go green. SPY 770. AMD just went red. US wholesale inventories plus 0.2, expected plus 0.3. That's a slight miss. Wholesale sales -3. Street wanted 3.4. So that's also a miss. So you have 2 misses on some macro stuff today. Tesla just said our Terafab will be built in Grimes County, Texas. Tesla says it and SpaceX will need far more chips. That's not necessarily a new headline because that's pretty much what SpaceX said on the call the other day as well. The more you hear it, the better it gets. Is it the best song of all? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's top 10. I'm just saying the best song of all time. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, that's a hard position to occupy. VG is up 3. Oil's up 1%. So that's probably why VG is up right now. Well, a lot of you guys like this song. You can't get upset at me, bro. I wasn't born in 1975. How was I supposed to hear the song? Like, you can't be upset. Like, are you going to be upset at someone who's born in 2030 that they didn't hear Bohemian Rhapsody? Like, no, you discover stuff after it's released if you're born at a different time. So I made sure to get some cultural knowledge about Bohemian Rhapsody. I just don't know if it's the best song in the world. Palantir 154. 154. They actually had Billie Jean as number 2. That one I agreed with. I was like, that's why I like the list. I was like, okay, this is a good list. And they said number 1, Bohemian. I was like, what the fuck is Bohemian? I was like, what is this shit? I legit went on YouTube and I was like, let me listen to this shit. Best song of all time. It's a good song. I just don't know if it's the best one. All right, here's an update on Sandisk.
Storage trade just really hit a wall today. Western Digital and Sandisk both posted record revenue just late yesterday, and yet both stocks selling off anyway, each falling. Well, you can see Sandisk now giving back a little bit, down 8%, but originally it was down 10%. Start with Western Digital, though. This is the hard drive maker. The quarter beat, but its profit margin guidance came in below rival Seagate's, and its storage shipment growth has pretty much slowed from recent quarters, and that was enough to knock the stock down. Sandisk, on the other hand, is a flat flash memory maker, think NAND memory that we often talk about. And it had a similar problem, record revenue, but a guide for roughly flat margins and only modest price hikes when investors really wanted a knockout. Some analysts think Sandisk specifically is lowballing, that prices are climbing faster than its guidance suggests. And Sandisk actually holds an investor day next week on August 13th, which could potentially reset sentiment. So they're just maybe being a little bit conservative right now. But this isn't necessarily just about the two stocks I'm talking about. These are momentum names. When they break, they drag down the whole memory group with them. Seagate, Rival, Micron also falling in sympathy today, even though Micron makes completely different chips like high bandwidth memory, more within the DRAM category. And then you also need to throw in a drop in AMD after its earnings, which were really, really strong, and yet the stock dropped. You start to see a pattern. As Wedbush put it in a note today, results clearing a high bar still aren't clearing investor expectations. But the pros don't seem that worried about all of them equally. Mizuho's Jordan Klein says AMD is the one to buy on the dip. In his words, quote, AMD is not a problem in my mind. Way more interest to buy a dip and be patient into Q4 on a very bullish setup with major product ramps into 2027, although he's a little bit more hesitant about Western Digital. The bigger question, though, Marks, are around the memory names, and the money coming out of memory may actually be flowing straight into NVIDIA. We don't get to say that too often just over the last year, but it's up, 14% just in the past week. So we are starting to see a rotation out of some of these momentum names.
Definitely has done better over the last week, but still underperforming AMD year to date. I'm just wondering, taking a step back, Christina, what do these reports tell us overall about the demand picture for memory, storage, chips in general?
Almost every single company now, even beyond memory, is signing these longer term agreements. The same case for Sandisk and Western Digital. And so they're telling us that it's not the boom and bust cycles that we were used to in the past, that they have a visibility into demand going 3 to 4 years out. And this is why, there's going to be a steady consistency in terms of pricing and revenue streams for these companies. The question is, some people can break these contracts. So that means that perhaps the boom and bust cycle still exists. And maybe for some of these contracts, there's a price ceiling. When you lock it in, they can't go beyond a certain price, just like they can't go below. So it limits the upside for some of these names. But everybody's trying to change the narrative, to answer your question in short, Seema.
Well, clearly investors responding. Western Digital down about 12%. Obviously, huge gains so far this year. We'll see what.
You're seeing these names try to come back, folks, especially Rocket Lab. Oh my, Robinhood back above 92. Sandisk, I think this is her moment. It's down the lowest it's been all day. If that can recover another 2%, this thing looks like she wants to flip green. Rocket Lab just exploding, and that's actually diverging from SpaceX, which is up 2. Rocket Lab up almost 5. Robinhood, high of day was 92.50. It's at 92.06. It was just at 91.40. Microsoft really trying for 500. Micron is about to flip green for the day. I mean, that would be it would be what we're used to over the past couple of days. A lot of these names go from green to red or red to green, but if that can break over 900, which it was yesterday for a few hours above 900, Sandisk probably has a run to 1400. If that's possible. Corning, which got demolished a couple weeks ago, 163 from 127. That's up 5%. SK Hynix wants to break green. The Qs are almost green. Reports that the Department of Defense is holding an emergency meeting to address Trump's anger over reports of ammunition shortages plaguing the country's military. Okay, so we got that headline. Overall good for Ondas and those drone stocks. T1 Energy, that's up 9. Redwire's up 10. Marvell getting a pump. You're seeing a lot of your typical high beta players coming out to get some love right here. AppLovin's still down 19. Western Digital was down 18. Now it's only down 11. OSS fell like 17% after earnings. Now it's green. So again, yesterday was just a hard day to report for any company, but I didn't think there were any problems with the earnings themselves. AXTI, Photonics name, that one coming back, 8%. AAOI has earnings after the bell. That's up 1%. As that continues to go. Wow, Fluence. Did that actually go green? Look at that. Fluence went green after a 25% drawdown. That's actually very encouraging because I don't know if it's specific to Fluence, but for a stock that high beta to actually come back from negative 30 in less than a day, just sentiment-wise, I mean, doesn't feel that bearish. Rocket Lab, let me check 80 resistance on the Lab of Rockets. Let's see if we can get there. 80 resistance is, dude, there's nothing. It's 8,000 shares. They did get a contract 2 days ago, 400 million. I don't know if that could be causing this. A little bit delayed reaction. I mean, SpaceX is green, but it's not that green. ASTS pumping as well. Yep. So you got ASTS going 5%. Saidu Space, that's up 5%. Redwire after good earnings, that's up 11%. Rocket Lab up 5%. What's the other one? Lunar should be up 4 to 5. Lunar is up 7. Oh, they did have a launch this morning. You're right. You're right. Okay, that should be probably part of the reason why. You know, the launch stuff is interesting because, like, you can't have a bad launch, but if you have a successful launch, you know, your stock's not guaranteed to pump because you're kind of expected to have a good launch. But if you have a bad launch, you know, you get tanked pretty hard. Even Figma back to 23. This thing was at 22 in the morning. Kind of like an intraday morning reversal. Someone just bought 2.3 million of Bloom Energy calls, 235, expiring September. Whoa. USD JPY just spiked pretty hard. 158 from the low 157s. That feels like part of a reason, actually, that stocks might have gone up. Is the dollar go down? Yeah, that's good, technically. 99.76, dollars flat. That's actually, yeah, I mean, technically, that's not the worst thing for stocks. Look at Rocket Lab, 79.60. I mean, if this momentum continues, I think Hood has a run back to like 93, 94 at least today, if we're going to see that much green across the board. Rocket Lab right there. CoreWeave, Nebius also was at 203. CoreWeave is only down 1%. Nebius should be at least above 210. Yeah, Nebius 213. All right, so if you bought anything at 930, Micron just flipped green. ELF just continues to be up 7%. You should be relatively green or break even. Oscar, is that still down 12? Oscar's still down 9. That one not getting the biggest bid. SpaceX kind of stuck at 110. And then Sandisk not getting that $1,300 move yet. All right, a little bit of a rebound. A little bit. Brady says, admit you can't believe everything you read on the internet. Dude, but then I actually started researching the song, and people, like, really, really respect the song because that video piqued my interest. You guys think I have to watch the live performance? I saw that pop up. I didn't fully watch the live performance, but I don't know, man. I was like, I gotta, these like random top 10 stuff always catches my attention on Instagram. It's like top 10 movies, top 10 songs, or whatever. And so obviously it's subjective, but I just never heard the damn thing. Shopify up 1. As that continues to go green. This is what I need. I need to relax from stocks sometimes, guys. I need to take my brain off of it. And these these pop cultural references that I know nothing about is the way. Like, this is how I'm learning about culture. And then I tell you guys about it, and you guys roast me about it. But I'm learning. I am learning. The other part, I don't even want to ask this question, but it is true. Like, what the hell is Bohemian Rhapsody? I still don't know what it means. Like, I still have no freaking clue, like, what it is. Like, Billie Jean was the girl that Michael was talking about that was accusing him of, like, having her son. I still don't know what the hell Bohemian Rhapsody itself is. Like, what is this? It's a cool name. Rocket Lab almost 79.80. But I don't know what it is. When did you discover Michael Jackson? When he died. That's really what got me to discover. Dude, I don't know what it is. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I don't know what the hell it is. But at least I listened to the song. Robinhood, why are we still stuck on HUD, dude? This thing should be moving a bit higher here. Apple 312, that flipped green, but that's down now. Enphase 39.71, and then Roblox 36.40. Okay. Let's see if we have any other updates we can look at. Let's see if we have anything from Trump. Trump was live yesterday in Nevada. Chime continuing to hold its pump. That making a move. Oh, NVIDIA is really pushing this robotics thing as they put out some new videos yesterday on Cosmos and where they think robots are going. Micron, there you go, 900. You have Nebius 215. A lot of these names reversing, which is really nice. Have you tried using a dictionary? Okay, you know what? Honestly, I need to freaking just ask ChatGPT, because it'll give me a much more direct response. Trying to find a couple of the clips from Trump last night. I mean, we looked at some of the Iran stuff that he said. Again, JD Vance just had a son as well, so there was some coverage on that. A lot of people thought Trump was wearing a wig yesterday based on his hair. I don't know if that's true or not, but that made some headlines as well. And then, oh yeah, this is what he said about gas prices, which, I don't know, maybe ticked it up a little bit here today.
It's dropping. And we may have to send it up again. We may have to, you know what happens when we send it up, but we hope we don't have to. But when that oil and gasoline go down, everything else follows. It's dropping.
If anything, it's Trump at least telling us he knows that when oil and gas go down, things follow. And I think as a result of that, he knows what the market wants to see. Okay, Sandisk, it's now or never. This has got to be the moment. Micron just hit 900. This thing's got to break through. Maybe this is enough for today. But I would imagine it's got to get some love right here. There's no catalyst for this intraday reversal. It's only been an hour since the market opened, less than an hour. So it could get faded off. But a lot of this stuff, Marvell now 220, a lot of this stuff flipping up. Reddit 154, still down 0.5%. Palantir 152 to 156. That's green. Where's Lemonade? Lemonade up. Is Space going up because SpaceX unlock scares are over? Well, the thing is, the unlock scares can't be over because there's still 90% or 87% of shares that have to be unlocked over the next year. So I don't know if the fear is over, but maybe that's the short-term catalyst. Maybe it's like, maybe the market's subsuming the 7% that's unlocked today. And although SpaceX is not, going to the moon, every other space stock as a proxy is getting some love. SpaceX actually up 4% right there. Or the more cynical take is the market makers are acting as if it's not a big deal for all these shares to get dumped. They're pumping it up right here. And eventually, when people actually think that the unlock is over, they buy in. That's when the unlock actually starts happening, and you start to see the shares get dumped here. Microsoft 497, Shark Ninja, that's up 2%. Did we hit it? Okay, Rocket Lab back from the absolute dead, touches 80. Wow, what a move today. 7% just straight up and to the right. Barely any dips. And now the question is, will it respect 80? And are we moving higher? ARM is also flipping green. ARM was down a lot on Monday. ARM almost back to 300. Dude, this is actually a really meaningful reversal across the board, except in a few neo clouds and a few memory names. Nebius is very close to flipping green. CoreWeave very close as well. Sandisk once again goes red, 1295 to 1280. So that one's maybe 8% is enough. You can't get the other 5%. Celsius missed on their earnings, unfortunately. EPS and revenue. So that's why that's down 16. Oscar beat, but Oscar continues to be down. Yeah, overall consumer reports seem relatively decent. Braveheart Bio's going public. Indicated to open at $25. IPO price was 18. Shift forward. Did these guys have earnings today? They're down 15 as well. Anything in the payment space outside of Chime has kind of taken a hit. Yeah, Shift 4, they missed on the guide. They beat on revenue 34% year over year. They beat on EPS 20% year over year. Beat on adjusted EBITDA 40% year over year. They missed on EPS by like 20 cents for the guide. That's, I don't think, a reason for it to be down 15%. SMR flipping green after a 99% miss. Either this is like just fake and people are, market makers are just bidding up everything to get people excited, or we're actually seeing a more meaningful reversal. There's just not a lot of catalysts to explain why we're seeing that reversal. Robin, there she goes. All right. This is where she's got to decide if she wants to go up to 93 here. The app is still getting hit, dude. It's not, or is it a bear trap? I mean, that's true. It's either a bull trap on the reversal or a bear trap on the sell-off last night. Hood's July metrics come out. I have the exact answer for that. I'll give it to you. It should be coming out. Should be coming out. I am pretty sure it's coming out next week on Wednesday. I am pretty sure. It's not today, right? No, I'm pretty sure it's next week, Wednesday. I'll get the exact answer, but August 12th. Yes, August 12th. Okay, so next week, yeah. Yes, we'll get that next week. SMR up 1.3. Honest up 36. It was up 50. So that one taking a bit of a hit. Oh, Melly we didn't talk about them. They had a great earnings. Of course, they're down 8% because margins went down like they do every quarter because they reinvest in growth. But, dude, they grew 50%. Like, Mercado Libre, just unbelievable company in Latin America. It's just some of the international names obviously haven't been getting a lot of love, and Melly does not have an AWS to subsidize a lot of their low margin e-commerce business. All right, SpaceX getting the move. Rocket Lab actually taking a very small hit right there. So is Robinhood. Red candle just came in. SpaceX getting a 6% move. It's a little weird, guys. These names should be moving more in unison. It's funny that SpaceX is really pumping as Rocket Lab takes a rejection at 80, almost as if they're trading spaces here. You'd kind of want to see them both just keep going. Micron's at 900. Very weird that Sandisk is not meaningfully catching up. But at least it's at 900. Yeah, shorts covering. I mean, that's honestly probably it could be happening here as well. A lot of times the shorts cover too when the volume just becomes so aggressive. And on space stocks right now, like here's the thing, if you're short space right now, anything, you have to ask yourself, like, is this BS and it's going to come right back down, or do I get the hell out before it Rocket Lab back into the 85, 90 range? And that's not the easiest thing to figure out. Right? That's the hard part about being like a short fund. It's like you have to have such a fundamental thesis that the stock you're shorting, every bounce is fake. Because, stocks bounce. If the S&P is up 2%, everything's going up. It's like going to be very hard for most stocks to not go up like on a green day we had on Tuesday. But as a short seller, you have to be so convinced that like all those bounces are just people buying it for no reason. And eventually they get sold off. Corning up 3. SoundHound, is that still pumping? That lost a good chunk of it. It was up 30. Now it's up 13. But they had a good quarter. SoundHound's been kind of flat for a year now. They had a lot of excitement in 2024. So I think the consolidation of that allowed it to get a bit of a move. Wow, we're in greed on fear and greed. When's the last time we saw greed? Last time we saw greed, last time we were at this level, folks, May 28th. It's been almost 2 months since we've actually seen a real greed signal. We are at all-time highs, so I mean, like, yeah, probably greedy. But still, it's like, all right, do you buy into that strength now if you think we're a little greedy? Yeah, yesterday was great. I think yesterday was like 58 though. So this one's actually like ticking up now. Could the market be pumping old space stocks for liquidity needed to buy unlocking SpaceX shares? I think that is possible. I think that's very possible. I mean, the market has done so many worse things before in terms of making you think something's going in the right direction when it's not. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past the bank. You know, the bankers, you know how much they made off the SpaceX underwriting fees? You guys know how much? I saw it in the SpaceX disclosures on earnings. So it wouldn't surprise me based on the money they made for them to pump up the whole sector just to make sure that people can get liquid, because they did end up taking the thing public. The bankers made $568 million to take SpaceX public in commissions and fees. I mean, it's kind of crazy. $500 million to bring this thing public. And so it's one of the, and again, they brought it public and they dumped it on everybody because obviously the IPO did horribly for anyone who bought into it. So the question now is, can they make it whole by, and a lot of those bankers' clients bought the IPO at 135 that they're now bag holding. So the question is, are they incentivized to, to get it back at that IPO price? ARM right there, still up 7. Rocket Lab, okay, trying to go back for 80. Let's see if that support resistance rejection holds. What's volume on SPY today? Do we even have volume? Wow, volume's light on SPY, dude. 5 million shares. That is nothing. We should be at close to 15, 20 million by now. All right, so volume's definitely, and in August in general, volume tends to die out because people go on vacation. By the way, who's gone on vacation already or going on vacation? Obviously, I went to Singapore, but no more vacation for a long time. Fun Extreme, thanks for the super chat. Let's see if we can get this bad boy to the moon. And Rocket Lab is my largest space holding, so it's been annoying to see it go down 50% over the past month, but I also, gotta be practical about the valuation on this thing. 6% up here on the day. Going to Toronto, that'll be fun. Tanner's meetup, Jamaica in August. Andy says my wife's going out of town today. That's a vacation for me. Andy, I'm telling her you said that. Next time I see you guys, I'm literally telling her you said that. Bree says I went to Scotland, England, Belgium, and Netherlands. Elizabeth said I went to the south of France end of May. June said I went to Sierra Nevadas. E5 says we're in Cabo right now. Iceland, Munich. Dude, Iceland is beautiful. Iceland is one of those places I really want to go to. Guatemala in January. Wow. Portugal. My uncle says he's in India, which he is in India right now. Breaking the bro code. No, because his wife is great. She comes to all the meetups, supports. I'm snitching. I'm absolutely snitching. Rocket Lab, there you go. Back to 80. Back to 80. Up 7 right there. Okay, look, if they're going to pump the space stocks today, then they might as well pump it. SpaceX just fell 2%, but still up 4%. They're going to pump it. They might as well pump it. Gene, I will absolutely visit you in Spain whenever I go to Spain. Barcelona always seems like a great place to visit. VG still up 4, Marvell up 2. I think we're trying to figure out if it, wow, Rocket Lab, what a candle, bro. 80 to 79.20 right after it got 80 the second time. They're not letting you easily buy at 80, thinking that 81, 82 is possible. Rocket Lab's volume's got to be crazy here. Rocket Lab, yeah, 8 million, basically 25% of its volume the first hour. I mean, look, 2 rejections. I think if it breaks 80 a third time, coast might be clear. If it actually gets rejected a third time, there tends to not be triple top. So let's see. Can it break through 80 again? Black Sky's up 14. Nathan says, I live in Spain. What time is it in Spain? It's like nighttime, right? No, it's 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Again, dude, it was so crazy with the market opening at 9:30 p.m. in Singapore. Like, it was kind of cool, but it was also just like, it was crazy for it to be night and everything starting. So I think I've got to stay in New York forever just to be on track with the market. Microsoft 496. Okay, let's see if Rocket Lab tries again. We don't have any macro headlines, folks. I got Fox will keep NFL rights till 2029. Amazon and Disney have been bidding for a lot more sports, so Fox looks like they're going to keep it. UAE fund weighs 6.3 billion AI data center investment in Japan. So we got more data center investments across. Oh, this one's interesting. Amazon to offer GLP-1 weight loss drugs to Medicare Part D patients. Is Novo down on that? Novo is flat. Hims is flattish to down. Maybe that's why Hims was down today. Amazon said eligible Medicare Part D members can obtain certain GLP-1 weight loss medications through Amazon Pharmacy. I mean, Amazon, once again, this is Amazon to 300 is inevitable. The question is just when. But if you're buying Amazon here, even if you have to deal with a dip, like this stock's going to 300. Especially now that AWS continues to climb. So you have Amazon with GLP. You have UAE putting 6.3 billion in data center investment in Japan. U.S. military aware of North Korea missile launch and are consulting with allies. Dude, we do not need the North Koreans to get involved, right? We have enough shit to deal. We do not need Kim Jong-un to start throwing up rockets in the air and have to deal with them. Like, we really, that's one thing we don't need to worry about right now. Rocket Lab 7984. Like, we don't need North Korea coming out saying, we're going to help Iran. It's like, no, relax. We really don't need to deal with that. 7980 right there. T1, I think, is just catching a bid in general because all of the energy stocks have been hit pretty bad. I don't see any specific headlines on T1. But EOSC got hit yesterday as well. Maybe the polysilicon price floor and tariffs that the administration weighed yesterday theoretically is bullish for some of the other energy. I mean, that could be a reason why. First Solar, Enphase, SolarEdge, EOSC, T1, all of them. I mean, even EOSC up 7% today. Yeah, I would imagine that's from that headline as it came closer to the end of the day yesterday. Micron just below 900. Yeah, we do not need North Korea. And again, you guys know me in North Korea. I've studied a lot about North Korea. I think I've watched like 10 different documentaries. I'm so fascinated with the regime there. But the one thing about Kim Jong-un is like he likes to seem, he has a big ego. He likes to feel like he's in power. Like when Trump actually crossed the border and shook his hand, he was one of the happiest guys ever because he felt legitimized as a world leader because no one really respects him as a leader, right? So for Trump to actually visit in 2018, which almost didn't happen. They were like a week away from canceling that thing, but Trump really wanted to do it. And so he might be trying to get more recognition. All right, Rocket Lab, third time's a charm. Yes, we got 80 again. Can we hold 80 this time? Third time's a charm, I think. Maybe. I feel like we got to get up to like 80.25 and hold on to the low 80s to at least think it's going to stay there. NVIDIA, did we go red? Oh my goodness. Why is NVIDIA selling off? I get why the SaaS names are down. Figma's still hit. Zeta's still hit. None of the SaaS names are recovering at all. ServiceNow still down. Fastly is down 10. Epsilera just flipped. That's up 5. Okay, I know that North Korea is not 2 hours away. Okay. I still don't think I should get that much shit for my Hawaii take. I thought it was near Miami. I was wrong. But I really doubt all of you guys thought it was near California. Like, I really do doubt that. Robin right there, 92.20 as well. Nokia also just went green. Interesting price action today. Interesting. You mean the YouTube PBS documentaries? Yes. I watched the YouTube PBS documentaries, okay? They capture my attention. Dude, I'll watch a 3-hour documentary before watching a movie easily. Especially on North Korea. If you were invited, would you go? No, dude. It's scary, bro. You do one bad thing, they'll freaking kill you. Like, that shit is scary. There's too many stories of people that disobey the rules and they get done. Wow, Rocket Lab gets rejected again, bro. The street does not like giving it $80. $79.20 again. It's like there's an automatic sell at 80, which is making me feel this pump is a little manufactured here. It needs to really get the breakout. Nebius just got hit at 215, now back at 212. Sandisk is once again losing. Did it lose VWAP? It's losing a lot of that previous structure. No, not yet. So it loses 1237. I feel like it goes to a downtrend. If not, maybe just consolidates. But it's down 4.5 now. It's down 6.7. You should replace the word of the day with country of the day. Okay, that's actually disrespectful, but that's hilarious. Oh, shit. I got to send Jose the link. Dude, why don't you guys remind me that on Thursdays, Jose has to come on? Look, he's going to give me so much shit now. He gets on stream. Why don't you guys remind me? It's 10:38. How did no one say anything? All right, let's see. We'll get Jose on in a bit. My bad. It's because I've spent all week with him. So I feel like I forgot. Rocket Lab, wow, 78. All right. Streets being weird about this $80 move. SpaceX also 116 to 112 right there. All right, Jose, I sent you the link. My bad, bro. Dude, this whole week has been. I thought yesterday was Thursday, and I thought the day before that was Wednesday. Like, I thought Tuesday was Wednesday. Like, this whole, I don't know why I've been off this week. Like, I really felt the days were switched throughout the entire week. The Abesis still 210, 211. Yemeni sources tell Al Jazeera 80 government troops were injured and are being treated in hospitals after the Houthi attack. Okay, so different stuff in the Middle East. Oil right now, S&P is still kind of flat. Oil's up 1.5. Oil's actually the highest of the day. S&P 769.99, literally up about 0.02%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Thursday, so you know what happens on Thursdays at 10:30, even though you guys don't know what happens apparently because no one wants to remind me. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jose.
I was there just waiting. I texted you. I sent you a message on Twitter. I commented a few times. Nothing. I'm like, okay, I guess. And then you said you thought yesterday was Thursday, but I didn't even get an invite yesterday if you thought it was Thursday. So it's like you completely forget about me.
Dude, it's because we did so many earnings together. So it's like, I don't have an excuse. I just forgot. But I am actually very curious about your take on a lot of the earnings we got yesterday. And there's a lot to dive into. But let's just start off with SanDisk. And obviously, I think, we did AMD together. People know your take, but I still want to get some updated thoughts on AMD. You've not been a memory bear, but you've not been the biggest believer of memory. Is there anything you saw in those SanDisk earnings that once again makes you think it's just not a good dip to buy?
I wouldn't say just because how do I put this? I wouldn't go to a memory bull and someone that owns a memory stock and say you're making a dumb decision. I don't believe that's the case. I mean, we heard from Elon, right, that if you're seeing memory increasing capacity at 20%, which is a high amount for a mature company, but your demand for memory is increasing at multiple times faster than that, then even as he explained it, easy economics means prices are going to go up. So, I mean, it's just, to me, it's more of a market. I think, I don't know if I explained it on our earnings. It's just a market. I explained it to Tanner. It's just a market. I don't feel I have the visibility of when shifts happen.
But I want to push back on that because I don't understand what you mean by that. They're talking about a $500 billion TAM. Jensen's talking about robotics and all this shit that's going to, and I agree with you, which is why I'm not in the memory trade. But to push back, it's like, what do you mean you don't have the visibility? The earnings are there, the growth is there. What is the market so afraid about when it comes to business? At what point does the market say this is not peaking and this cycle is going to last much longer than what we think?
To me, it's I would say all the numbers are correct. TAM growing dramatically. For me, is the fear of when is there some optimization in the back end? When does a massive shift happen in technology? I feel like in other parts of the industry, because I'm a little bit more familiar, I feel more comfortable reading certain things about it, using certain things. I don't feel like with the memory space, it's so deep into the supply chain and it's so deep into all these AI chip companies that I think being able to find data becomes a lot harder in what I typically kind of look for. So if someone's working on some optimization technique or someone's working on some supply chain uniqueness that I feel I can see in other aspects of the semiconductor industry, I don't think I can see that in the memory space. And for that reason, it would be something that I would see when the rest of the market sees it. And that's the worst time to ever see kind of anything in an investment, right? And I think in other aspects, I might have a little bit of an edge, just based on some of the things I look at, and some of the research and some of the tools that I use. I have where I can say things are looking a little bit weak here. I don't think I have that in the memory market. And with a portfolio like mine that's already very high beta, I don't want to have a high beta. And then with something, I feel like I have the risk of not knowing. Because if I have that little fear that I just mentioned, right, that fear, at the end of the day for investments, it's very much emotional control. And if I feel like I don't have, I'm already doubting myself in the memory space, I can tell that that's already going to create a fear for me in certain positions. And when you add emotions to the trade or to an investment, that's when bad decisions get made.
And do you think the institutional guys have that same fear around optimization, supply increase, price peaking that is stopping them from giving a reasonable multiple on the memory stocks?
I wonder if for them it's more of historical plays. I do think most people following the AI industry in the analyst space are not truly using AI either. So I think for them, it's not just the fear of the memory space, but more just the whole AI cycle in general. Where for me, it's a little bit different. I do believe this AI cycle is strong and it's going to last a long time. Now it's the subsegments within there that I have fear. And usually that fear is due to unknowns, and those unknowns create the uncertainty for me.
Okay, AMD, they crushed. Do you think this thing deserves to be below 500, or could we see it easily getting back above?
Yeah, I mean, I see a path of this going much higher. But I understand why the street doesn't like it, right? Performance, they only beat revenue expectations by 2 to 3% versus what analysts are expecting. Certain AMD bulls believe that this quarter, and I always see a lot of bears. Everybody always says that AMD is next quarter. I even saw something in your chat earlier today. It was like AMD always says next quarter is their NVIDIA moment. But I think for most people that follow AMD, AMD's moment, and I don't even know if I want to call it an NVIDIA moment, but the moment where their AI story begins is the end of Q3. That has always been the case when Helios Rack comes out. So if you were expecting a massive monster beat this quarter due to AI chips, then you're just not following the industry close enough. You're just going with whatever is in the cycle. This is why it's important to understand when are certain chips being released, what's the supply chain looking like, because if not, you get confused and you expect a massive beat this quarter. Now, commentary that Lisa Su did give us, right? She did mention that in the financial analyst day on November, that by the next 3 to 5 years, they expected $20 of earnings per share, right? And for me, Lisa Su likes to sandbag a lot of things. So if she tells me $3 to $5, $3 to $5, I mean 3 to 5 years, I'm going to take her closer to the 3-year than the 5-year. And then she ended up mentioning that now they're massively exceeding. I forget what's the actual verbatim she used, but she said it's massive. It's more like exceeding beyond that $20, right? So for when someone says that, that's like what, $25, $30. So $25, you slap a 30 forward PE ratio, you're getting AMD at $750 price point, which to me is within the next 2 to 4 years. And that's I think it's going to be closer to the 2-year mark. So to me, it's still very attractive. But I agree with what some people say. NVIDIA is still king. This market right now, we're so compute constrained and supply constrained that NVIDIA is going to continue to dominate. And we heard from Elon some amazing news. We can run some numbers on that. But I do believe there's opportunity for other players as well.
Why do you think Nebius is stuck every day within this $10, $15 range? Are you concerned a little bit about the neoclouds if the memory names are causing some of these issues?
Definitely not. Pricing hour continues to go up, and Nebius does have a lot more strength right now in this current market because they do tend to have a lot more shorter term contracts, and with shorter term contracts, 3, 6, 12 months, you get to react more to the pricing. And right now, pricing continues to go up. So Nebius is in a really good spot right now that GPU hours are increasing. I don't know if you saw, I think yesterday someone posted that DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek
is raising their prices.
Raising
right?
prices, right? Yeah. So it's intelligence is getting more intelligent. Selling intelligence is the best thing you can do, right? And if you have the compute, if we're short in demand, if we don't have enough AI GPUs, the ones to own it will be able to make good money. I mean, that's DeepSeek was supposed to be the game over, right? It's like Chinese models, DeepSeek, Kimi, from Open Moon or whatever they're called. If inference is the money maker, and everyone's going to get greedy. If you're obviously compute constrained, it means supply demand imbalance, and you get to increase. You can get to increase prices to kind of cool down some of the demand.
So the broader neocloud thesis for you is very much intact, even if some of the component stack of the GPUs like memory, optics, etc., different questions around those.
Yeah, because you get to, you pass that price down, right? You pass that price down because when you're a neocloud player, if you make like 3-5 year contracts, you already understand what the price of that GPU you're going to pay for is. So when you make these contracts, you're like, okay, I paid this price with the GPU. I know this is the price increase because of memory. We're going to pass that down. And then that kind of trickles down to GPU hour. That's another kind of reason why certain GPU hours are increasing. So first, it's just the inflation of the GPUs are increasing. So obviously, you're going to sell it for more. And then obviously, the supply and demand imbalance happening in that space. Then you had also Meta yesterday released their new coding model, Meta Muse 2. So this is exciting when you no longer just talk about Anthropic and OpenAI. Right now, even though Anthropic and OpenAI are the top players, I feel like recently we've heard about a lot of other players. You're hearing about Grok doing a lot better. You hear about Meta doing a lot better. You hear about these Chinese models. And that forces competition to continue to go. And when competition is there, innovation starts going at rapid levels. Codex just happened, 10 months ago? AI agents just happened 6 months ago. And that's when only Anthropic and OpenAI were going against each other. Now that all these players are waking back up, I just can't imagine what kind of innovations are going to happen. And with innovation, that drives more demand for AI chip compute. So neocloud players, I think, are my favorite plays even though obviously there's many bearish reasons to hate the neo cloud space, I am truly a believer that selling intelligence is becoming even more and more powerful.
And CoreWeave, with the massive move over the past week, I would imagine it's just kind of reflecting that backlog being priced in a bit more aggressively than it was before.
Yeah, I'm excited for next week, right? I think next week we have earnings for both, for a lot of the major neo cloud players. I mean, CoreWeave, you have, I think the CoreWeave is next week. I don't know if Nebius is, but yeah, is Iran also next week? I'm pretty excited. If you have compute, I think you'll be able to show some strong numbers.
Do you think the NVIDIA deal with the neoclouds for revenue share was a productive deal? Because there were some reports this morning that some former employees are basically saying it was annoying to the neoclouds more so than accepting, because it just means there's more dispersed compute versus them getting the bulk GPUs at scale. Or do you think it really doesn't matter what CoreWeave or Nebius think, because at the end of the day, it's NVIDIA's product and they have to follow in line?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the big boy, it's most likely the big boys that are going to be complaining, right? Because they're the ones that now are able to get better financing and better results. But I think NVIDIA, at the end of the day, the first thing that they wanted is they didn't want Amazon, Microsoft, and Google to be the sole players in the AI industry. So what did they do? They ended up helping build some of the big neoclouds that we know right now, right? Nebius and CoreWeave, at least those two for sure, kind of really built on NVIDIA's investments, and NVIDIA's kind of helping them out with backstops and backlog. I think now NVIDIA has to make sure we can't just want 5 players or 6 players. We don't just want CoreWeave, Nebius, Amazon, Microsoft, blah, blah, blah. Because what happens if they start going somewhere else? Let's see how we can help this market grow. And at the same time, I don't want to make individual investments in all these neo cloud players. Let me try to build up a financial way to be able to help these other neo cloud players build up some form of better investments or better loans, opposed to them going to some of these banks and some of these banks giving them crazy loans that they won't be able to kind of pay back or have a hard time building some of these massive infrastructures. So I think NVIDIA just wants to make sure they diversify. I can definitely see why certain neo cloud players would be upset, though, because you're increasing the competitive landscape.
So nothing in the AI earnings is kind of taking you away from the broader compute constraint thesis. And obviously NVIDIA is coming up. I would imagine you think NVIDIA is gonna, really perform, but do you think the stock actually reflects that if every other stock basically can't get any move after earnings?
I wish NVIDIA can get it up, right? That's pretty much what you're asking, right? Do you think? Yeah. I hope it does. I mean, but at first, based on every earnings we've heard so far, I have no doubt that the numbers NVIDIA is going to give us this quarter and next quarter are going to be insane. I mean, it's SpaceX. Just put SpaceX in perspective, right? They mentioned that they're going to be 2 gigawatts by the end of this year. They mentioned that by next year, they expect 10 gigawatts of active GPU, somewhere between 5 to 10. Let's not give them the full 10. Let's give them 7. That's 5 gigawatts added in 1 year. Jensen has talked about $40 billion per gigawatt at first. Now he's actually saying it's closer to 60, maybe closer to 80. Eventually, he believes it goes to 100 billion per gigawatt. Right. If we just go to the low end of 50 times 5, you have $250 billion in revenue from one customer, from one single customer in 1 year. SpaceX is not the biggest buyers it's not the biggest cloud player. What is Amazon, Google, and Microsoft and all these players like? What is the actual revenue that NVIDIA is going to see next year? Right. Meta gave us indication that they expect the demand of I forget the actual quote that Mark said, but he was like, the market has underbuilt what AI supply. And we believe that's going to continue to be the case, because for the upcoming years, not only the compute that we need, but that other players need is going to be crazy. Andy Jassy from Amazon said that heavy investments are going to continue between 2027 and 2028. Google mentioned 2027 CapEx is going to be significantly higher than 2026. So for all these people, I don't think they're all sitting in the same table and say, haha, let's trick investors right now. right?
Right.
I don't think that's happening. I think they're all really see the move in this space. So I'm just pumped. Coming here, I just want to go back into my portfolio and see what else I can buy in the AI industry.
Yeah, it's interesting, dude, because all the hyperscalers once again continue to increase the capex. That's not slowing down. Stock prices have started to reflect that for the hyperscalers and for some of the semis. I also think there's a natural give and take, right? If the semis went up like crazy and the hyperscalers dumped like crazy, for the hyperscalers to get somewhat of the green, you know, you got to get it from somewhere, and maybe the semis are getting it back. So Nebius maybe doesn't get to be at 290 anymore, but it was also at 140 last week. It's at 207, so you can't complain as much, right?
Yeah, a lot of these, I mean, stocks were crazy. And CoreWeave was at 60, Iran was at 30. A lot of the optics names, it's been if you were not a damn chicken these past 2 weeks, I think you're very, very happy. If you bought in and didn't have weekends, I think you're pretty happy as an investor.
Yeah, I think the problem became that people bought the initial dip, like Nebius, to like 200.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and they did it on margin. And so, like, that was the issue. It's like, I think people were willing to buy. It's just when the dip went 30% and then another 30, people were like, oh, I'm fucked. Like, you know, like,
it's like
that was the issue.
Yeah, that is true.
Jose, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, finish the lessons.
I'm just saying, you still haven't invited me to dinner. You promised this about 3-4 months ago.
Okay, you know what? You know what I found out yesterday, bro?
No dinner.
We went to dinner at GTC.
And they didn't invite me. Oh wait.
You were there. You were literally there eating.
There.
So we did do. You can't say this. We've never done dinner. Like, we've done it.
Oh, that is true. Yes, we did. Okay.
I was thinking about the other day. I was like, wait a second. We were with each other.
I didn't know it was a one limit max exception.
I was telling the story when we were in the car and your wife called. I was like, yo, where the strippers at, Jose? That was great.
I don't know if it was great for me, but yeah, it was funny when you tell the story. I guess
it was great for everyone else in the car that was laughing. Jose's Twitter right there in the chat, his YouTube, What the Chip Happened, his newsletter. You can subscribe there. Jose, I have one last question for you before we go. Have you ever heard the song Bohemian Rhapsody?
I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go play and then I'll text you. I mean, I probably have. I don't know. I'll let you know once I go listen.
Thank you. That's all I want to say. Thank you. That's all I want to say. And he's older than me, by the way, guys. He's older than me. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a great way to end out the segment. Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
All right. Take care, man. Bye. I'm glad I could help.
These guys give me a lot of shit for not listening to that damn song. So thank you, Jose. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, man. Bye.
We'll see you next week. Later. I don't know what to tell you guys. Maybe it's not the #1 song on the planet. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is not staged. I didn't tell him the questions I asked him before. SpaceX, by the way, getting that dump from 115 to 110. So is Rocket Lab. So also that getting hit. He's only 2 years older than me, but still, like, it means that, you know, I bet you he's heard Billie Jean. All right, so Nebius getting the dump right there is also kind of interesting, given it was almost pushing 220. NVIDIA, I think, dumping from 223 to 219 is probably the reason why your NeoCloud's getting it, and then Sandisk just can't get any love. The space name's going down. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of typical action every day. Tesla lost 320 right back to 320. SPY just hit 771. Bitcoin got a little bit of a candle up almost to 65. I mean, it has been kind of back and forth every day. Robinhood back to 92 after losing 92, went to 91.30. It's just weird because once Micron back to 900 after being at 880 10 minutes ago, like, it's almost like buyers and sellers don't know what to do, and so they're coming in and out of the stock, and that's affecting all the derivative plays next to it, which is obviously what we're seeing across a variety of different sectors. Did you buy Microsoft? I bought Microsoft at 385 and 413 over the past 2 months. Not a massive position. Meta is the big dip that I've been buying, which has not fully performed yet, but I'm confident Meta will be fine. Yeah, small position in Microsoft. There is a new ETF for neoclouds, which kind of makes me feel not the best. Whenever these companies put ETFs out for these buckets, that means there's way too much excitement. NCLD is your neocloud ETF. Don't they have a photonics one too? Yeah, LYTE. I mean, look, it is a good mechanism to get exposure. Like DRAM is a great way to get exposure. It's just you don't launch these ETFs when people don't care about the assets in them. You buy it when there's a lot of excitement and people want to buy it. And historically, it tends to be a short-term signal of euphoria. Now, granted, those names are still down a lot from their highs. But now if people want to, and the thing about the neoclouds is there's a lot of nuances between neoclouds, man. Some neoclouds have horrible financing, horrible debt structures, horrible backers. Some of them are stupid Bitcoin miners that just became a neocloud because that was the one way for them to get liquidity. So I would not want to bucket them together. Like the memory names, at least it's a bit different because, I mean, there's only 7 or 8 of them really that are creating all the supply. Whereas neoclouds, I mean, when a shoe brand like Allbirds can turn into a neocloud, I'm not sure if the ETF version of picking neoclouds is the best. So I'm not sure if I would just buy the ETF itself for it. Bohemian Rhapsody became famous because of a film in the 90s called Wayne's World. Oh, I know this movie. 1992 classic. Huh. I guess I didn't hear the song when I listened to it or when I watched it. Yeah, Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, Donna Dixon, Alice Cooper. Maybe I just need to listen to it again or watch it again to get the impact of the song, because I think I watched it a while ago, Kind of song didn't hit me the way it should have. Anyway. It's a classic. It's a classic. It is a great classic. 8770 on CoreWeave. Okay, no, I haven't seen the stupid movie. What do you guys want me to do? A big screen spinoff of the Saturday Night Live. Rob Lowe plays a producer that wants to take public access Wayne's World to the world of commercial television. Okay, I'll watch it. I'll get some context about this song that apparently is so important. All right, do we have anything else, guys? I think that's pretty much it. I mean, across the board. Oh, actually, the SpaceX lockup thing. Let's get some coverage on this real quick, and I think then we can end it out.
Let's get to Oliver Mennick at the SIBO in Chicago with a look at what the option market is telling us, Oliver.
Hey, the good news for SpaceX traders is that volatility has come down significantly after earnings, meaning options are generally cheaper. Also, the stock is up today as the first insider lockup expires. The bad news is traders are taking advantage of that by bidding up puts. It's probably the most bearish we've seen SpaceX options flows maybe ever, but perhaps that good news is that on the way down, the bearish trend was certainly going against the bullish options flows. So right now, $240 million in options premium has traded, with $150 million tied to puts. That's a big chunk of puts, and they're particularly in the short-term contracts, mostly expiring tomorrow. 6 of the 7 top trades by volume today are puts expiring tomorrow. The biggest bear we saw bought 2,105 strike puts expiring next Friday, though. But it's a $1.3 million bet that SpaceX breaks the $100 level to the downside. Here's the thing, Seema's never just one way in these flows. There is some call buying as well. Further, way out on the calendar, though. In fact, the single biggest trade of the day is actually a very bullish long-term bet from someone selling 7,500 of the 90 strike puts expiring in June next year, collecting $12 million, then using more than $4 million of that to buy 5,220 strike calls. So while the stocks lost a lot of short-term bulls, there's still some pretty big money betting on success.
Oliver, I wonder if you would extend that to more of the call option story this week on the S&P. investors might be looking to lock in some gains, but they certainly don't want to give up completely on the potential for more upside.
Exactly, especially as the S&P, I think, kind of settles into a range here, Carl. There still is the interest in the appeal of trading a stock like SpaceX, where anything is possible. That's really still the main story on SpaceX. Even though vol has come down, it's still at 100. You've got big money betting on the triple this week as a hedge. It's more evidence that this is just a Pandora's box, and traders really have a lot of opportunity for high beta moves in either direction. And for many, that is the appeal.
Yeah, and we've made the point, so many of the folks who cover it are still quite optimistic and haven't really budged on their targets even after that print earlier in the week.
All right. Market gave it a little bit of love today. We're seeing it kind of come right back down. Maybe that one reverses, but SpaceX, Micron right there back up to 907. It's just been back and forth all day. But it would not surprise me if SpaceX gets back to 115, NVIDIA gets back to 220, or if these names continue to consolidate. Wow, Sandisk, when did this happen? 1300. That came out of nowhere. I feel like that happened literally in the last 5 minutes. Interesting. So Sandisk breaks through that 1300 level. Micron breaking out. NVIDIA ends up being the culprit going down while that's happening. Rocket Lab still stuck below 79. Amazon slightly green. SoundHound up 13. Robinhood actually making a move. 9250 might be the bullish level we need to break above. SK Hynix almost breaking even. Nebius, very small bounce, but there is a bounce. Okay, let's see. I mean, Fluence ended up going green on the day. Sandisk's earnings were phenomenal compared to Fluence. I mean, down 3%. This stock has way too much excitement and momentum for negative 3% to necessarily be the reason it can't flip green here. So maybe by the end of the day, we're going to see if that plays out. The Clarity Act, again, the updates we talked about last week, the August 7th deadline on July 20th was the deadline until Brian Armstrong again talked about it last week. There's still some corresponding issues with how banks think about the yield, and August is about to be a session break for Congress. So there's no way this thing's getting passed until mid-September, the earliest. So if that's what's keeping Bitcoin down, then I don't think that's changing anytime soon. But I think by the end of the year, it still has a shot, hopefully before the midterms. Micron 912, Meta 591, ARM almost at 300, 290. Micron, let's see if we can hold above that 900 level. Then Micron back to 1,000, I think would get a lot of people excited. We touched it a couple times last week, but then it just got rejected right after. Then Sandisk only down 2.9. Maybe that one continues to make the move. Feels like every breakout on the bullish side is not holding. Yeah, it's been the story for the past week, to be honest. It's like we got the big reversal after Leopold, and then every breakout after that gets rejected, which is kind of typical. I mean, like, after you have 30, 40, 50% move on these names. But the good thing is we're not giving it back. Like, Nebius didn't go below 200, Sandisk is not below 1,000. Micron didn't go below 700 like it did during the Leopold thing. So we're not giving back those gains, but we're obviously not breaking back out to the higher levels that people are looking for. All right, folks, that is it for the market open. I will be back on the close. The close is going to be crazy. It's going to be just me. But we're going to have Airbnb, Trade Desk, Rigetti, MP, Cloudflare, Marathon, Lyft, AAOI, Red Cat, Roku, DraftKings, Serve Robotics, CleanSpark, Ouster, Monster Energy, Twilio, Atlassian, Instacart, Texas Roadhouse, Dropbox, Sweetgreen, Synaptics, Innodata, Twilio. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot today. I also think we're going to have an executive from a public company join the close to talk about their earnings. I don't want to confirm it yet because their schedule is super shifty, but I will know in a couple hours. And so after we get all those results, maybe we'll get to be joined by C-suite at one of these companies. And yeah, hopefully they come on the show and can talk a bit more about the results. But it's going to be an absolutely wild market close. I don't think we're listening to any of these calls. Because quite frankly, none of these calls are like the biggest ones to listen to, but obviously the results, consumer space, photonic space, could be a lot of different things to look at. It's not Jensen, unfortunately. Hopefully one day, but it would not be Jensen today. All right, word of the day. Word of the day. Let's pull it up. It's not the Duolingo CEO, although that guy is super cool, dude. That guy is super cool. He's he actually sold one of his first companies to Google. I think it was DoubleClick. It's like one of the core parts of their advertising. So that guy's a rock star. It's just, again, Duolingo is being doubted as like a meaningful language play when it comes to AI in general. Okay, it is not Queen. They would probably be annoyed that I never heard Bohemian Rhapsody. Mimesis, the tendency to imitate or mirror the behaviors of others, the adoption of ideas, actions, or beliefs throughout observation rather than independent reasoning. As more funds piled into trade, mimesis took over. Investors were buying because everyone else was buying. I think I've heard this word before. Yeah, I don't think we need to see how it sounds, but mimesis, the tendency to imitate or mirror the behaviors of others. Okay, that's what we got. Steve is going to be live in about 20 minutes, but we absolutely should spam Steve with Bohemian Rhapsody, because how else would we not? I'm not going to lie, it is kind of catchy. Like, mama, like that part is just like, that. It caught my attention immediately. It was like, hold on, that's like, it's an interesting like way to start a song. It's just his greatest song of all time. I don't know. Let me link Steve's channel. He'll be live in a bit. Okay, this is his link. That's what we'll spam him with. All right, well, that is it for me. Thank you all for joining. Technical Tuesday will be next week. Again, oh, Jason, I got to tell you guys, Jason, yeah, it's happening. It's happening. His wife got admitted yesterday. Literally, he got back in New York not even day before, like about 10 hours before his wife went into labor. And so he said, tell the chat prayers, please, next time when you stream. So wishing very good luck to Jason. I don't officially know if like the baby's here or not, because he's in the hospital though, but he got there right back in time. He was really worried that he would be in New York and she would need him. And thankfully, because he's not really due till September. So technically he thought it would be okay, but yeah, excited for Jason. Super, super cool for him, and should be really fun. But yeah, that's why we didn't do Technical Tuesday this week. It'll be next week. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys in the market close. We'll have a lot of earnings. We will keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. See you guys in a bit.